Chapter 728. Elder Xuan. Looking at the real dragon's soul in the sky, Elder Liu Li's smile bloomed like a chrysanthemum. The real dragon transformed from a serpent dragon was definitely much more powerful than the 9 serpent soul. Even if there was only one real dragon, it was still much more powerful than the 9 serpent soul. Zhuowen, you're dead meat this time. Staring at Zhuowen, Elder Liu Li's eyes were filled with viciousness. Not only had Zhuowen disrespected him, but he had also killed his son. If he did not get rid of him, he would not be able to rest easy. Everyone in the square shook their heads and sighed. They knew how powerful the real dragon's soul was. Zhuowen would not be able to contend against it, even if the latter was a complete grade 5 arcana master. Roar. In the sky, the real dragon's soul stared at Zhuowen indifferently. With a roar, it charged toward Zhuowen. Zhuowen, who was floating in front of the real dragon's soul, stood quietly without any movement. His eyelids were slightly lowered as if he did not care about the real dragon's soul that was charging toward him. Is Zhuowen courting death? Looking at the indifferent Zhuowen, everyone in the square was puzzled. Although the real dragon's soul was powerful, it was not to the extent that it would be so frightened that it did not dare to move, right? Haha. Is he really a coward? Is he scared just like that? Elder Liu Li's face was filled with mockery as he sneered. Roar. Just as everyone thought that Zhuowen was about to be devoured by the real dragon's soul, a ray of black light suddenly shot out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows and charged toward the real dragon's soul. Following that, a shrill scream suddenly rang out in the sky. Everyone looked up and was shocked to find that the real dragon's soul, which was originally imposing, had suddenly stopped moving. Following that, it started to roll violently in the sky. It looked as if it was in extreme pain. If someone were to observe carefully, they would discover that the surface of the true dragon soul was covered in dense ink-black threads. These threads were very thin and dense, making them difficult to detect. Furthermore, the fine black lines continued to expand, as if they were absorbing the power of the true dragon soul and expanding continuously. What's going on? Why is the true dragon's soul suddenly rolling? Elder Liu Li's face stiffened as he stared gloomily at the true dragon's soul that was constantly rolling and howling. When he wanted to control the true dragon's soul, he had been blocked by a mysterious power. Could this energy have been released by Zhuowen? Raising her head, Elder Liu Li's gaze finally landed on the young man who was floating in midair with his eyelids slightly drooping. Just now, when the true dragon soul was about to devour Zhuowen, such a strange situation suddenly happened. Elder Liu Li did not believe that such a thing happening to the true dragon soul had nothing to do with Zhuowen. Zhuowen, what did you do to the true dragon's soul? Elder Liu Li could not help but roar. Zhuowen glanced indifferently at Elder Liu Li and said indifferently, if you want to know, then come up and see for yourself. As soon as he said that, Elder Liu Li fell silent. Her gaze was fixed on Zhuowen, but she did not dare to go up. The true dragon's soul was so powerful, but such a strange situation had occurred. How could she dare to go up? What? You don't dare? What a coward. What's the difference between you and that trash, Yang Hua? You don't even dare to come up. You're indeed the second elder of the Arcane Guild. Zhuowen's mocking words rolled over from the sky, causing Elder Liu Li's expression to turn extremely ugly. Everyone in the square stared at Elder Liu Li with strange gazes. They did not expect Elder Liu Li to be afraid. What surprised them even more was the true dragon's soul that was constantly rolling in the sky. Now, even a fool could see that the true dragon's soul's abnormality was definitely related to Zhuowen. Roar. Suddenly, the true dragon's soul roared to the sky. Then, its golden body was shrouded by countless ink-black mist and was instantly corroded. Even its corpse did not exist. The ink-black mist rolled in the void, then turned into a ray of black light and re-entered between Zhuowen's eyebrows. Henceforth, the true dragon's soul had completely fallen in front of Zhuowen. The true dragon's soul was killed just like that. Everyone in the square still felt that it was unreal. They really could not imagine that the true dragon's soul, which was so imposing just a moment ago, was killed so easily. It was really a big surprise. Xiao He, how was it? As soon as Xiao He returned to the Sea of Consciousness, Zhuowen hurriedly asked. Haha. I'm so full. The energy of this true dragon's soul is more abundant than that of the beast spirit. It has replenished this dragon lord's origin. Xiao He chuckled. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. Xiao He's expression was so excited. It was likely that he had obtained quite a lot of benefits. Now, it's time to settle the old score with Elder Liu Li. As he spoke, Zhuowen's gaze fell on Elder Liu Li, who was already in a daze. The corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a sinister smile. With the true dragon's soul destroyed, Elder Liu Li seemed to have lost his soul. There was even a trace of regret in his eyes. He also did not expect that the young man in front of him, who he had not taken seriously at the beginning, would actually have such terrifying strength. If he had chosen to let Yang Hu cut off one of his arms, perhaps these unbearable things would not have happened. Swoosh! In an instant, Zhuowen arrived in front of Elder Liu Li. Terrifying mental energy poured out, and the infinite sword formation surrounding him immediately turned into rays of cold light that shot towards Elder Liu Li. Damn it! Elder Liu Li's expression changed drastically when he saw the countless rays of cold light rushing over. With a shake of his sleeve, terrifying mental energy gushed out and formed a mental energy wall that was several feet thick in front of him. Ding ding ding! Crisp sounds rang out, followed by countless rays of cold light landing on the mental energy wall. For a moment, there was a deadlock. Zhuowen, I'm the second elder of the Arcane Guild. You dare to kill me? Elder Liu Li furiously shouted. Old dog. Who was the one who said that I'm dead for sure and wanted to kill me? Now that you know that you're not my match, you actually dare to ask such an idiotic question. Is there something wrong with your head? Zhuowen's voice was incomparably sinister. This Elder Liu Li was really laughable. Just now, he said that he wanted to kill Zhuowen, but now he asked such a question. Anyone could tell that Elder Liu Li was afraid. Zhuowen's words caused Elder Liu Li's expression to darken. He coldly said, Then what do you want to let me go? You're now the 10th elder of the Arcane Guild. Don't tell me you want to go against your superiors. Old dog. Did I say that I accept the position of the 10th elder? You're too naive. I'll quote what you said just now. Today, you're dead for sure. With that, Zhuowen formed a sword seal. Instantly, a yin-yang pattern appeared above the ultimate sword formation, and the ultimate sword formation also split into two extremes of yin-yang. Yin-yang style. With a low roar, the ultimate sword formation turned into a yin-yang sword formation, and its power increased by dozens of times. Crack! The mental energy wall in front of Elder Liu Li instantly crumbled inch by inch and turned into dust. Then, under Elder Liu Li's desperate gaze, the yin-yang sword formation suddenly descended and completely penetrated him. Fart! A large amount of blood gushed out from Elder Liu Li's Tianling acupoint. Elder Liu Li roared towards the sky and fell straight to the ground. She couldn't be more dead. Hiss hiss hiss. Looking at Elder Liu Li, who was completely dead, the surrounding people could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. The honorable second elder of the Arcane Guild died in front of them just like that. Moreover, he died so tragically. You killed Elder Brother Liu Li? On the high platform, the other 7 elders stood up one after another. Their gazes were focused on Zhuowen, and their faces were filled with shock and anger. Zhuowen's actions were too fast. So fast that even they couldn't save Elder Liu Li before he died. Why? You want to avenge him? Slowly turning around, Zhuowen's gaze landed on the 7 elders on the high platform. His voice was flat and cold. As soon as he said that, the 7 elders' faces turned cold. None of them dared to utter a word. Elder Liu Li was the strongest elder among them. Even Elder Liu Li had died in the hands of Zhuowen. Needless to say, they were definitely no match for him. Now, it wasn't worth offending Zhuowen for the dead Elder Liu Li. Seeing how Zhuowen's words stunned the 7 elders, the crowd in the square looked at Zhuowen with a different gaze. From the original indifference, it became passionate and worshipful. The young man in front of them was no more than 20 years old. Not only did he break through the fire wall of 10 punches, but he also broke Master Yang Hua's arm in front of everyone without any scruples. What was even more terrifying was that even the second elder of the Arcane Guild, Elder Liu Li, had died in his hands. Now, He even stunned the 7 elders with a single sentence. How awe-inspiring was that? In the middle of the square, the tall and straight figure would probably be deeply imprinted in everyone's mind. Whoosh! Suddenly, a sound broke through the air. It swept out from the flaming building in the depths of Baiyang town. In an instant, it reached the square and landed in the middle. This person was dressed in a white robe. He had white hair and a youthful face. His beard were all white. At the same time, he held a horsetail whisk in his hand. He had a sage-like demeanor. Especially his eyes, which were as sharp as an eagle's, made it difficult for Zhuowen to look straight at him. Liu Li was killed. After the white-robed elder landed in the square, his gaze immediately focused on the dead body of Elder Liu Li. He spoke unhurriedly. Reporting to Elder Shiyuan, Brother Liu Li was killed by that arrogant brat. Not only did he kill Liu Li, but he also killed the most talented Yang Hua. The 8th elder hurriedly stood up and said respectfully. The other 6 elders lowered their heads and looked extremely respectful. The person in front of them was Elder Shiyuan, the founder of the Arcane Guild. His strength was unfathomable. Oh! Was it this kid who killed him? The white-robed elder suddenly turned his head and looked at Zhuowen, who was not far away, with a faint smile. The corners of his mouth squirmed as he said, "Little friend. It seems that our luck is really good. We actually meet again." At that moment, Zhuowen finally saw the true face of the white-robed elder. His pupils shrank and he exclaimed, "It's you. I didn't expect you to be Elder Shiyuan of the Arcane Guild." The strange conversation between Zhuowen and Elder Shiyuan immediately caused many people around them to be surprised. They did not expect the mysterious Elder Shiyuan to know this mysterious young man. Chapter 729. 9-colored refining flame. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed as he stared at the elder in the white robe. He was familiar with the elder as he was the mysterious elder who had appeared in the tattered cloth. Back then, Zhuowen's fire-melting skill was given to him by the elder. The elder in the white robe had done him a favor. "Why? Don't you recognize me?" The elder in the white robe smiled faintly. "Why would I? The fire-fusing art that Senior gave me back then was very helpful to me. I have always remembered Senior's kindness in my heart," Zhuowen said respectfully. The elder in the white robe before him was extremely powerful. Back then, even Xiao Hei was wary of him. Hence, Zhuowen did not dare to treat him lightly. Elder Shiyuan was not Elder Liu Li. He was someone who could match up to Emperor Qing. He could probably suppress Zhuowen with a flip of his hand. That is not a favor. At most, it is a deal. The myriad Yang scripture that you gave me has helped me a lot. Speaking of which, I owe you a favor. Elder Shiyuan waved his hand and smiled. Zhuowen nodded. Back then, Elder Shuan's expression when he sensed the myriad Yang scripture on him was still vivid in Zhuowen's mind. Apparently, the myriad Yang scripture was extremely important to Elder Shiyuan. Elder Shiyuan, this man is treacherous. He killed Elder Liu Li. You must not let him off. Seeing that Elder Shiyuan and Zhuowen were chatting, the 8th elder felt that something was amiss. He quickly pointed out the cause of Elder Liu Li's death and hoped that Elder Shiyuan would punish Zhuowen. "I am not blind. Do I need you to remind me?" Suddenly, Elder Shiyuan slowly turned his head and stared coldly at the 8th elder. His voice gradually became cold. The 8th elder's gaze turned cold. He smiled embarrassedly and did not dare to speak anymore. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Elder Shiyuan and Zhuowen knew each other and they seemed to have a good relationship. If Elder Shiyuan wanted to punish Zhuowen, he would have done so long ago. He would not have chatted with Zhuowen for such a long time. However, the 8th elder insisted on bumping into the muzzle of the gun. Wasn't this just asking for trouble? "Senior, this Elder Liu Li," Zhuowen's gaze landed on Elder Glaze's corpse, and he was a little hesitant. After all, Elder Glaze was the 2nd elder of the Arcane Guild, and her status was not low. It was indeed a little inappropriate for him to kill Elder Glaze. Haha. So be it. You're stronger than him. You'll be the 2nd elder of the Arcane Guild in the future, Elder Shiyuan said nonchalantly. Such a nonchalant attitude immediately caused the surrounding people to tremble. Even the expressions of the other 7 elders changed slightly. However, no one refuted. Elder Shiyuan was the founder of the Arcane Guild, and his strength was far beyond the other elders. He held the power of life and death in the Arcane Guild. They had no right to refute Elder Shiyuan. Moreover, as soon as Elder Liu Li died, Elder Shiyuan immediately handed over the position of second elder to the young man in front of him. It was obvious that Elder Shiyuan valued the young man in front of him. However, Zhuowen shook his head and said, "I'm not interested in the position of an elder in the Arcane Guild. I'm only participating in the elder selection for the art of transcension. I hope you can fulfill my wish." "Oh, I see. I can give it to you, but you need to come with me to the guild headquarters. I have something to show you." Elder Shiyuan nodded. Zhuowen nodded, and the two entered the headquarters of the Arcane Guild under the envious gazes of the crowd. The space in the Arcane Guild was very large, and there was a terrifying flow of people inside. They were all arcanists wearing long robes. When the arcanists saw Elder Shiyuan coming in, they all lowered their heads and bowed respectfully. They did not dare to slight Elder Shiyuan. Passing through the crowd, the two went through a rather dark and narrow tunnel until they reached the deepest part of the Arcane Guild. There was a sealed room in the deepest part of the Arcane Guild. The door of the room was made of black iron. Even if Zhuowen wanted to open it with brute force, it was unlikely that he could do it. Looking at the sealed room in front of him and the grave expression on Elder Shiyuan's face, Zhuowen's face revealed a trace of doubt. He could not understand why Elder Shiyuan had brought him to a sealed room. Elder Shiyuan stepped in front of the door and formed a seal with both hands. Suddenly, the door made of black iron emitted a rather dazzling light, and then the door opened automatically. A terrifying temperature suddenly burst out from the room. Zhuowen was shocked to find that there was an endless sea of fire in the room. Moreover, the endless sea of fire had 9 colors. It was the 9-colored refining flame. However, the 9-colored refining flame was bound by the black iron chains and could not break free. "Elder, this is the 9-colored refining flame?" Zhuowen asked in astonishment. "Yes. It is indeed the 9-colored refining flame. Unfortunately, the 9-colored refining flame is not complete, and its power is far from the level of the heavenly fire." Elder Shiyuan's eyes flickered as he sighed. "Not complete?" Zhuowen was puzzled. "You have also practiced the fire melting technique. Logically speaking, by combining 9 types of earth fire, you can create the legendary heavenly fire. However, it is not that simple. 9 is an extreme number. It is a number that has reached the limit. Combining 8 types of earth fire is actually not difficult for me. However, once the number of earth fire reached 9 types, the 9-colored refining flame that was formed went berserk." Speaking of this, Elder Shiyuan's mouth revealed a touch of bitterness. He did not expect the 9-colored refining flame to go berserk unexpectedly. Upon hearing this, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. His gaze converged on the ceiling of the room, where the 9-colored refining flame was bound by countless black iron chains. He could feel the violence in the 9-colored refining flame. If the 9-colored refining flame were to break free from the black iron chains, the power that would erupt would destroy the entire Arcane Guild. "Elder, what do you mean?" Zhuowen vaguely guessed Elder Shiyuan's intention. "Young friend, you have also practiced the myriad evolution scripture. Your mental strength is huge, far exceeding that of an ordinary complete grade 5 arcanist. The 9-colored refining flame is very strange. As time goes by, it will continue to grow stronger. Moreover, I can clearly feel that the 9-colored refining flame is gradually developing spiritual intelligence. I am afraid that not long after, the flame is likely to break the seal. When that time comes, the entire Baiyang town will be plunged into misery and suffering." Speaking of this, Elder Shiyuan revealed a bitter smile. Back then, when he was in high spirits, he had merged the 9-colored refining flame. He originally thought that it would greatly increase his strength. However, he did not expect to create such a disaster. Spiritual intelligence. Zhuowen was shocked. He did not expect the 9-colored refining flame to develop spiritual intelligence. This was indeed a sign of the heavenly fire. "Elder, what do you want me to do?" Zhuoan suddenly asked. Elder Shi Yuan waved his sleeve and a translucent palm-sized octahedral crystal quietly floated above his palm. This is the mysterious ice soul. It has a terrifying cold yin power. Although it is far from being able to withstand the power of the nine-colored refining flame, with our mental strength, we should be able to suppress the nine-colored refining flame with the help of this mysterious ice soul. Later on, I will be setting up a grade 6 origin formation, the Extreme Mysterious Array. This mysterious ice soul will be the array core of the Extreme Mysterious Array. Once it is set up successfully, the nine-colored refining flame will be suppressed forever and will not be able to do anything. Speaking of this, Elder Shi Yuan's face was extremely solemn. He continued, however, the nine-colored refining flame already has some spiritual intelligence. It can feel the threat of the Extreme Mysterious Array. Therefore, when I am setting up the array, it will definitely attack. So, you plan to help you withstand the attack of the nine-colored refining flame when you are setting up the Extreme Mysterious Array? Zhuowen's face was slightly pale. The nine-colored refining flame was extremely terrifying. Although it did not become a heavenly flame due to the failure of the fusion, its power was much more terrifying than his seven-colored phoenix. It would be difficult for Zhuowen to withstand it. Little friend, you don't have to worry too much. Although the nine-colored refining flame is powerful, most of its power has been sealed by the black iron chain. It can only release a portion of its power. If you take action, you should be able to withstand it. Elder Shi Yuan explained. Even so, the risk is still not small. After all, this is the nine-colored refining flame. Although there's nothing wrong with me helping you, senior, you should take out something practical, Zhuowen said with a frown. Zhuowen could not help Elder Shi Yuan for nothing. After all, Elder Shi Yuan was not someone he knew and he could not be so selfless. Little friend, don't worry. If you can help me set up the Extreme Mysterious Array, I will give you the secret spiritual skill, the Transcendent Realm skill. I will also pass on my experience of failing to merge the nine-colored refining flame to you. What do you think? When Elder Shi Yuan said that, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He could get the Transcendent Realm skill. However, he was more interested in Elder Shi Yuan's experience of failing to merge the nine-colored refining flame. From Elder Shi Yuan, it was not difficult to merge the nine-colored refining flame. However, once the nine earthly flames were gathered, it would be extremely difficult to merge the heavenly flame into one. Elder Shi Yuan was a terrifying rank 6 Arcana master. If such a person had failed to merge the nine earthly flames, it showed how difficult it would be to merge the heavenly flame. If Zhuowen could get Elder Shi Yuan's experience of failing to merge the heavenly flame, it would be easier for him to merge the heavenly flame when he gathered the nine earthly flames. Little friend, what do you think? Elder Shi Yuan asked with a smile when he saw the interest in Zhuowen's eyes. I agree. I hope that you can pass on all your experiences to me. Don't generalize. Zhuowen nodded. Don't worry. I will do what I say. I will not play any tricks. Since you have agreed, let's begin. Elder Shi Yuan nodded his head and took a step forward. A terrifying flaming aura swept towards Elder Shi Yuan like a hurricane. Elder Shi Yuan snorted. His terrifying mental strength swept out and shattered the flame chi around him. Zhuowen followed closely behind Elder Shi Yuan. Little fellow, when I set up the Extreme Mysterious Array later, I won't be able to take care of myself. Moreover, the nine-colored refining flame will also stop me. Therefore, you must protect me well, Elder Shi Yuan instructed solemnly as he came to the center of the room. Chapter 730. Extreme Mystic Formation. Seeing that Zhuowen had agreed, Elder Shi Yuan turned around and stared at the black ice soul in his hand with a grave expression. With a shake of his sleeve, 7 translucent primal crystals flew out from Elder Shi Yuan's sleeve. They were like stars, revolving around the ice soul. Heaven and earth profound ice, 7-star chilling soul. Give me the extreme concentration array. Elder Shi Yuan bellowed and a surge of mental strength gushed out from his Niwen palace. Instantly, the 7 primal crystals that were originally revolving around the ice soul gave off a dazzling light. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Instantly, the 7 crystals stopped spinning. Instead, with the mysterious ice soul as the center, they formed the Big Dipper and arranged themselves in an orderly manner. A soul-stirring coldness burst out of the profound ice frost soul at the center and turned into countless blue tentacles that connected the 7 origin crystals. Boom! At the moment of connection, a surge of blue cold air slowly swept out from the 7 origin crystals, and the amount was increasing, almost turning the surroundings into a cloud of blue fog. Moreover, this strange blue mist was still growing, and its range was constantly expanding. Rumble. The moment the blue mist appeared, the 9 colored flames that were trapped by the black iron chains in the sky suddenly surged violently. Terrifying 9 colored flames gushed out from the gaps between the chains and headed toward the extreme mystic formation that was brewing below. The 9 colored refining flame felt threatened by the extreme mystic formation below. It would not allow such a threatening thing to appear here, as it would make it feel very uneasy. Zhuowen. It will take at least an hour to fully activate the extreme mystic array. Help me buy some time. Elder Shiyuan shouted without turning his head. He formed another seal with both hands. The blue mist in the extreme mystic array became denser and the speed at which it spread was much faster than before. Zhuowen nodded, and a 10-feet-long bone spear appeared in his hand. Then, he shook his right hand, and unleashed a terrifying spear intention. Countless tadpole-like spear shadows flashed out, and swept upwards layer by layer. Rumble. Countless wisps of flames that seeped out from the gaps of the chains were completely extinguished under the power of Zhuowen's spear intent. Perhaps the 9-colored refining flame felt that its attack had been blocked, but it was enraged. It struggled violently, causing the chains to shake unsteadily. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Wisps of terrifying flames swept out, and they turned into 9-colored flaming tentacles. These flaming tentacles were a few dozen feet long, and they looked extremely terrifying. Zhuowen's gaze became extremely grave as he looked at the flaming tentacles in the sky. This was a 9-colored refining flame. Its might was so terrifying that even he was extremely fearful of it. His right hand shook once again, and countless spear shadows swept out once again, and bombarded the flame tentacles above. Bang! 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 Swoosh! 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 Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Nirvana of the great sun, annihilation. With a low roar, Zhuowen's body was covered in golden light. A terrifying golden giant with 2 heads and 2 arms walked out from the spatial crack. It looked like a god and a demon, and it swept toward the countless flaming tentacles. Boom, boom, boom. The golden giant's body was extremely terrifying. It stood in front of Zhuowen and blocked the countless flaming tentacles. Although it was barely able to block them, it still managed to hold on. As time passed, the extreme mysterious array that Elder Shiyuan had set up grew stronger. The blue mist had almost covered 2/3 of the room. Perhaps the 9-colored refining flame had sensed the great threat of the extreme mysterious array, so it finally roared. Its voice was filled with rage. The countless flaming tentacles in the sky suddenly joined together, forming a huge flaming vine that was hundreds of feet long. It almost covered the entire room. Boom! In an instant, the terrifying flaming vine whipped the golden giant. Zhuowen's pupils shrank when he saw that the indestructible golden giant had been smashed into countless golden lights. What a terrifying attack! Zhuowen whispered with an ugly expression. Swoosh! As soon as the golden giant was smashed, the huge flaming vine swept toward Zhuowen at an extremely fast speed. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He quickly summoned the infinite sword array and used the yin-yang form. Suddenly, a yin-yang limitless pattern appeared above the sword array. The pattern rotated at a high speed and divided into 2 extremes. Boom! The flaming vine arrived in an instant and whipped the yin-yang sword array. The powerful force caused the yin-yang sword array to tremble violently and let out a mournful cry. Swoosh! A mouthful of blood leaked from the corner of Zhuowen's mouth. His eyes were filled with shock. The flaming vines were terrifying. Just a single whip was enough to injure him, who was within the sword formation. Bang! 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 The flaming vine whipped out again when it missed its target. Endless flaming whips appeared in the air and whipped the yin-yang sword array continuously. With every whip, Zhuowen took a step back. He had taken almost 15 steps back, but the flaming vine did not give up. Senior, is the ultimate mystic array not ready yet? Spitting out another mouthful of blood, Zhuowen looked at the flaming vines that were flying towards him once again. His heart trembled in shock. The flaming vines were too terrifying. If he were to receive another attack, he would be seriously injured. It's done. Elder Shiyuan suddenly shouted and shook his sleeve. Suddenly, the ultimate mystic array, which was in the shape of the Big Dipper array, was lifted and swept upward. Cold air surged out and almost froze the air. As soon as Elder Shiyuan finished his words, Zhuowen spread out his 3 pairs of thunder wings and avoided the flaming vine that was sweeping toward him again. He stood behind Elder Shiyuan. The current him no longer dared to face the flame vine. This thing was simply too terrifying. He simply couldn't bear it. Boom! Endless blue mist gushed out and almost froze the air. The ultimate mystic array slowly swept toward the 9-colored refining flame on the chain. The 9-colored refining flame finally felt restless. The ultimate mystic array that was sweeping toward it made it uncomfortable. Swoosh! The flaming vine violently lashed out, trying to destroy the ultimate mystic array that was sweeping toward it. Unfortunately, the moment the flaming vine came into contact with the blue mist, it was frozen into a blue ice sculpture and shattered into countless ice shards. In an instant, the ultimate mystic array arrived above the chain. The 7 profound crystals revolved around the chain and the mysterious ice-cold soul drilled into the 9-colored refining flame in the chain with a swoosh. Sizzle! Sizzle! A soft sound rang out, and then Zhuowen was shocked to discover that the terrifying and surging 9-colored flames were actually gradually extinguishing and shrinking. In the end, it transformed into a thumb-sized candlelight that seemed extremely inconspicuous. Ha ha! Finally, the 9-colored refining flame has been completely sealed. In the future, the 9-colored refining flame will not be able to escape from the ultimate mystic array. Elder Shiyuan smiled excitedly. In order to completely seal the 9-colored refining flame, he had tried for many years. Today, his wish had finally come true. Little friend Zhuowen, it's all thanks to you this time. If not for your help, I'm afraid it would have been difficult to seal the terrifying 9-colored refining flame. Elder Shiyuan turned his head and looked at Zhuowen with a smile. He was quite excited. It's all thanks to you that I was able to seal the 9-colored refining flame. I only did a little bit of my strength, Zhuowen said humbly. You're too modest. This is the transcendent art. It can increase the chances of a breakthrough. With that, Elder Shiyuan flicked his finger and a scroll slowly appeared in Zhuowen's palm. It was glowing and there were 3 small words written on the scroll. It was the transcendent art. After receiving the transcendent art, Zhuowen's face lit up. This secret spiritual skill would be of great help to him in breaking through to grade 6. Little friend, the transcendent art is only useful for arcana masters below grade 6. Once your cultivation reaches grade 6, this secret spiritual skill will become useless, Elder Shiyuan suddenly said. When Zhuowen heard this, he was stunned at first. Then, he nodded his head with a tinge of disappointment in his heart. Originally, he had thought that the transcendent art could be used all the time. Now, it seemed that he had thought too much. However, Zhuowen was satisfied that it could help him break through to grade 6. After all, grade 6 arcana masters were extremely powerful and rare. In the entire Qing Xian Empire, perhaps only Elder Shiyuan had reached such a level. Elder, what about the experience of fusing the 9-colored refining flame? Zhuowen rubbed his hands in anticipation. Don't worry, I won't forget it either. Elder Shiyuan raised his eyebrows. His right hand formed a sword finger and pointed at Zhuowen's forehead. Suddenly, a stream of information was transmitted from Elder Shuan's finger to Zhuowen's mind. After browsing through it, Zhuowen was surprised to find that the information contained all of Elder Shuan's experience of fusing the 9-colored refining flames. It even pointed out in great detail why he had failed. However, as Zhuowen browsed through it, his eyebrows knitted together tightly. This was because the information said that in order to successfully fuse the 9-colored earth fire and transform into a real heavenly fire, one must have something. That thing was called the thousandfold fossil. It was a strange stone that could turn something rotten into something magical. If the thousandfold fossil was used to fuse the earth fire, it would definitely transform into a heavenly fire. Thousandfold fossil? Zhuowen muttered softly and knitted his eyebrows. He had never heard of the thousandfold fossil. How could he find it? Elder, this thousandfold fossil. Zhuowen raised his head and could not help but ask Elder Shiyuan. Elder Shiyuan shook his head and said, the thousandfold fossil has not been seen since 10,000 years ago. To find this stone is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, I know that the Chief Arcana Master of the Arcana faction in Fine Theology College has clues about the thousandfold fossil. The Chief Arcana Master of the Arcana faction in Fine Theology College? Chapter 731. The newly appointed second elder, the head Arcana Master of Fine Gods Academy, is called Mu Feng. He's an extremely stubborn old man. Back then, I went to Fine Gods Academy to ask about the thousandfold fossil, but I was chased out by that old man. Speaking of this, Elder Xuan's face turned pale. It was obvious that he had been bullied back then. Mu Feng. Muttering softly, Zhuowen remembered this name. When he entered Fine Gods College in the future, he would definitely get clues about the thousandfold fossil from this person. Young man, you actually have a rank 5 primordial array like the Greater Infinite Sword Formation? I remember that this primordial array was incomplete. Just now, I saw that your sword formation was complete. Could it be that you repaired it? Elder She Yuan stared at the greater limitless sword formation around Shuo when with a hint of doubt in his eyes. Nodding his head, Zhuowen smiled and said, this is also a coincidence. I found an incomplete sword formation in the Greater Infinite Sword Formation and repaired it completely. Little friend, it seems that your luck is not shallow. You were actually able to find an incomplete small sword formation. Elder She Yuan nodded his head and did not continue to ask. After all, everyone had their secrets and he naturally would not get to the bottom of it. There are a total of 5 sword moves in the Greater Infinite Sword Formation. May I know how many moves you have mastered? Elder She Yuan suddenly asked. Zhuowen's eyes flickered and he replied, the first 2 moves are the Blood-Weeping move and the Yin-Yang move. Although Zhuowen's mental strength had reached rank 5 great completion and it was not a big problem for him to comprehend the 5 moves of the Greater Infinite Sword Formation, he had just reached it not long ago and had not completely comprehended it. It would take a lot of time to completely comprehend it. As for the last 3 moves, I have some insights. I will pass them to you as a reward for helping me seal the 9-colored refining flame. With that, Elder She Yuan flicked his finger and a white light shot out from the tip of his finger and entered between Zhuowen's eyebrows. Immediately, a stream of information flashed through Zhuowen's mind. It was all about the sword moves in the Infinite Sword Formation. After roughly browsing through the information in his sea of consciousness, Zhuowen's eyes flashed with joy. With the detailed explanation of these sword moves, Zhuowen could quickly grasp the last 3 sword moves of the Greater Limitless Sword Formation. Young friend, I've never seen such a high level of mental strength in my entire life. Why don't you stay in the Arcane Guild and become the second elder? Elder She Yuan once again invited Zhuowen to become an elder. Zhuowen was young, but he had the terrifying mind strength of a rank 5 great completion. His future was limitless. Elder She Yuan really loved talent and did not want to let him go. Hearing that, Zhuowen's face showed a trace of hesitation. Becoming the second elder of the Arcane Guild was naturally beneficial to him, but he was afraid that this identity would restrict him too much. He did not like this kind of restriction. Young friend, you don't have to worry. The Arcane Guild will not restrict your movements. You're just a nominal second elder. I won't interfere with where you want to go, Elder She Yuan said in a serious tone. Oh, won't interfere with me? Zhuowen's eyes showed a trace of surprise. Elder She Yuan was really generous. Not only did he let him become the second elder of the Arcane Guild, but he also did not restrict his movements and allowed him to go in and out freely. This was simply a great thing that fell from the sky. How about it? You should agree to it now, right? Elder Shi Yuan said with a smile. Zhuowen nodded and smiled. If that's the case, I'll take the liberty to agree. Thank you, Elder Shi Yuan. You don't have to thank me. You're so talented, you'll definitely surpass me one day. If I don't keep a genius like you, I'll really be blind in my old age. Elder Shi Yuan smiled and waved his hand. Suddenly, he said seriously, although I won't interfere with your movements, you're still the second elder of the Arcane Guild. If Baiyang Town is in trouble, you can't sit back and do nothing. Of course. Zhuowen nodded. This is the elder's token. Take it first. Elder Shi Yuan shook his sleeve and suddenly a black token appeared in Zhuowen's palm. The word 2 was engraved on the surface of the token, which should represent the ranking of the elders. This token has a communication function. Any elder who is in trouble will use this communication function to send a distress message to other elders. If you're in trouble in the future, you can use the communication function of the token. I'll go over personally when the time comes, Elder Shi Yuan said with a smile. Oh, there's a communication function? Zhuowen stared at the token in his hand in amazement. Zhuowen chatted with Elder Shi Yuan for a while more before he bade farewell and left Baiyang Town. The Green Emperor ranking battle was about to begin. Zhuowen needed to prepare well. His goal this time was to be in the top 5 of the Green Emperor ranking battle. Outside the square, Elder Shi Yuan silently looked at the figure in the distance. Soon after, he said to the crowd in the square in a clear voice, Elder Liu Li was killed by Zhuowen because she was not as skilled as him. From now on, the second elder of the Arcane Guild is no longer Liu Li but Zhuowen. Do you all understand? As soon as these words came out, the crowd in the square was in an uproar. They did not expect Elder Shi Yuan to actually bestow the position of the second elder to the young Zhuowen. It seemed a little ridiculous. However, when they recalled that Zhuowen could even kill Elder Liu Li, the position of the second elder was worthy of his name. The other 7 elders looked at each other and a bitter smile appeared on their faces. It seemed like Elder Liu Li's death was too unjust. After returning to the Drunken Spring Pavilion, Zhuowen directly returned to his room. There was only a month left until the ranking battle. Although it would be difficult for Zhuowen to raise his cultivation again. However, this time, Zhuowen had the detailed explanation of the sword moves of the infinite sword formation that Elder Shi Yuan had given him. He would be able to grasp the last 3 sword moves of the infinite sword formation in the final period of time. This way, Zhuowen would be much more confident in the ranking battle. Time flew by like a white steed flitting by a crack. A month had quietly passed. The rising sun slowly rose into the sky and a ray of golden light scattered in the imperial city. The originally deserted streets were extremely lively today. The wide streets were bustling with people like dragons. At a glance, it was basically a sea of people. Everyone's eyes were filled with passion and anticipation. The stream of people was like a huge dragon as they continuously flowed towards the imperial city at the heart of the imperial city. Today was the day of the Azure Emperor ranking battle. The 100 geniuses who had emerged from the Peach Blossom origin painting would have a real battle to determine the rankings of the Azure Emperor ranking. This was a true gathering of geniuses, an intense battle that was highly anticipated by everyone. Within the Drunken Spring Pavilion, Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian led Zhuowen, Luo Xing, Elvia Tao and the rest towards the imperial city. They were also looking forward to the ranking battle. Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian had high hopes for Zhuowen. After all, with Zhuowen's strength and talent, they believed that Zhuowen had a very high chance of entering the top 10 of the Azure Emperor ranking. If Zhuowen really entered the top 10 of the Azure Emperor ranking, he would break the record of the top 10 geniuses of the imperial city. Therefore, Lu Hantian and the rest had high hopes for Zhuowen. Lu Hantian and the rest were not slow. They entered the imperial city in half an hour. Due to their previous experience, they were familiar with the huge square in front of the throne room. The ranking battle was a grand event of the imperial city. With the Azure Emperor's permission, all the members of the imperial city who had some status in the imperial city were basically present. In just a moment, the square was filled with people. In the middle of the square, there were 10 huge stages made of green stones. They looked very intimidating. Lu Hantian led the 8 of them and slowly entered the square under the gazes of the crowd. They stopped at a resting area that was specially set up for the 100 geniuses of the 9 great provinces to rest. "Brother Lu, you guys came really early." A rather enthusiastic voice suddenly sounded. Lu Hantian and the rest turned their heads and saw an old man with sparkling eyes. He was leading a young man in white clothes towards them. This old man was the county lord of Liuyang County, Qiu Changsheng. The one following him was the number 1 genius of Liuyang County, Qiu Shaoyun. In this 9 counties Great War, Liuyang County was ranked 8th. They were ranked higher than Liuyang County and had risen 1 place from the previous Great War. Such a result was actually quite good for Qiu Changsheng. Speaking of which, Qiu Changsheng had to thank Zhuowen. If it wasn't for Zhuowen eliminating so many geniuses of Liuyang County might have been ranked last again. "Brother Qiu." Lu Nantian greeted him with a smile. "This time, your Muqin County is really in the limelight. Who would have thought that your county's ranking would soar to 2nd place? Especially your county's Zhuowen. This kid is definitely a hidden dragon." Saying so, Qiu Changsheng couldn't help but look at Zhuowen, who was behind Lu Nantian. His eyes were filled with envy as he secretly sighed in his heart. Why didn't their Liuyang County have such a peerless genius? Brother Qiu is too kind. Although Lu Nantian's words were modest, the corners of his mouth were full of smiles. In a certain area of the square, a rather wide palanquin was parked. The veil in front of the palanquin was gently lifted and 2 beautiful figures slowly walked out. The 2 beautiful figures were both young women. One of the women had an ordinary appearance and was not eye-catching at all. Her figure was even curvaceous, causing one to be lost in wild and fanciful thoughts. The other woman was so beautiful that she could captivate birds and beasts. As soon as she appeared, she attracted the attention of the surrounding crowd. Many people stared at this woman with infatuation. If Zhuowen noticed this, he would definitely recognize these 2 women. Weren't they Jing Yun and Huangfuzi Xia, whom he had met in the inspection treasure hall? At this moment, Huangfuzi Xia also noticed Zhuowen, who was behind Lu Hantian. Her beautiful eyes flashed as she said with a complicated expression, "I never thought that the guy we didn't pay attention to back then would actually be such a genius." The 2 women had naturally heard of Zhuowen's achievements. Therefore, when they looked at Zhuowen, their gazes contained traces of complicated emotions. This Zhuowen has been in the limelight recently. However, it is said that this kid was beaten to a pulp by His Highness the 2nd Prince in the Peach Blossom origin diagram. If he meets His Highness the 2nd Prince in this ranking competition, this kid will definitely lose. Standing at the side, Huangfuzi Xia crossed her arms in front of her chest and said with some disdain. Back then, Zhuowen had not given her any face at all. Even now, she was still brooding about it. Therefore, her attitude towards Zhuowen was naturally not good. Chapter 732. Ring number 8. As time passed, the square became more and more lively. Most of the people had come because of the Green Emperor ranking battle. They wanted to watch the Green Emperor ranking battle. Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Other than Muqin County and Liuyang County, the other county lords had also brought their geniuses to the Azure Emperor rankings top 100 to the square. With the arrival of the other county lords, the 5 great clans of the imperial capital county also brought their top geniuses to the square. After the 5 great clans arrived at the square, Zhuowen felt 2 unfriendly gazes converging on him, causing his eyelids to twitch slightly. Turning his head slightly, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and discovered that Feng Yong was grinning coldly at him from the front of the Feng clan's team. His right hand even made a throat-slitting gesture. At the front of the Grand Clan's team, Grand Lily's beautiful eyes were filled with coldness and killing intent as she stared indifferently at Zhuowen. Looking at the unfriendly gazes of the 2, Zhuowen sneered in his heart. With Zhuowen's current strength and his perfect grade 5 mental energy, his strength had increased by several times compared to 3 months ago. Zhuowen was not even afraid of an 8-wheel ultimate Emperor realm expert. Swoosh! Another sound of something breaking through the air rang out. In the sky, Several streaks of green light shot over at lightning speed and arrived at the square in an instant. The green light faded away, revealing 8 figures. The leader was a middle-aged man in a green robe. He was the Blue Dragon Hall's branch hall master, Aoki. Beside Ching Mu stood 2 young men with slender figures. They were also dressed in long green robes. One of them had a dignified appearance, and there was always a faint smile on his face. His name was Ching Ming, and he was one of the Azure Dragon Branch Hall's 2 peerless heroes. He was also ranked 4th on the Azure Emperor ranking. His strength was extremely terrifying, and he was one of the popular contenders for the top 5 spots on the Azure Emperor ranking. The other person was also in a green robe. However, he wore an Azure Dragon mask, making it impossible to see his true appearance. His entire person seemed mysterious and ethereal. This person's name was Qing Yang, one of the 2 peerless heroes of the Azure Dragon subpalace. He was ranked below Qing Ming, and was ranked 5th on the Azure Emperor ranking. His strength was also unfathomable, and he was even more mysterious than Qing Ming. It was said that Qing Yang had intentionally concealed his strength in the previous ranking competition. As for his true strength, it was unknown. Many geniuses were wary of him. Zhuoan had some understanding of the top 5 on the Azure Emperor rankings. Each and every one of them was terrifyingly powerful, and they would be his greatest enemy to enter the top 5 this time. These 5 people were first Prince Huangfu Wudao, Murong Zhon of the Murong clan, Zhu Bai of the Zhu clan, Qing Ming of the Azure Dragon Branch Palace, and Qing Yang of the Azure Dragon Branch Palace. Moreover, Glen Lily, who was ranked 6th in the previous tournament, had improved her strength very quickly. This time, she could be considered a troublesome opponent. This ranking tournament could be said to be filled with experts and geniuses. Not long after the people of the Azure Dragon Branch Palace arrived, a group of figures walked out from the throne room. The Azure Emperor led more than a dozen geniuses of the royal family as he slowly walked towards the square. On either side of him were Huangfu Wudao and Huangfu Wuji. However, when Zhuowen's eyes fell on Huangfu Wuji, he frowned. Huangfu Wuji's aura seemed to be much stronger than before, and even gave off a faint sense of pressure. He broke through? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes as he stared at Huangfu Wuji, muttering to himself. He hadn't thought that Huangfu Wuji would break through in just 3 months. Huangfu Wuji had been at the peak of the Ultimate Emperor realm, but now that he had broken through, he had likely reached the Ultimate Emperor realm. Moreover, the cultivation method that Huangfu Wuji used was given to him by the Azure Emperor. It was said that it was a cultivation method that surpassed the Emperor Realm Armor skill. It was a legendary Venerable Realm Armor skill, and was extremely powerful. Although Huangfu Wuji had just reached the early Ultimate Emperor realm, his combat strength was likely comparable to a middle Ultimate Emperor realm or even a late Ultimate Emperor realm martial artist. Huangfu Wuji tilted his head, his eyes faintly looking at Zhuowen in Muqin County. His eyes were filled with arrogance and confidence. Little bastard, you better not be eliminated so early in this ranking tournament. I will personally cripple you in front of everyone. Huangfu Wuji glanced at Zhuowen not too far away, his eyes filled with confidence that victory was within his grasp. If this were 3 months ago, before he had broken through, then perhaps he would have feared this Zhuowen. But ever since he had broken through to the Ultimate Emperor realm, his strength had undergone an earth-shaking change. Zhuowen no longer placed him in his eyes. In his opinion, the current Zhuowen was nothing more than a clown, an existence that he could casually crush to death. Huangfu Wuji still felt a lingering fear as he thought of his life in the Forbidden Area for the past 3 months. The Forbidden Area was filled with dangers, and he had narrowly escaped death several times. If it weren't for the protective treasure that the Azure Emperor had given him, he would have already perished in the Forbidden Area. Fortunately, he had managed to leave the Forbidden Area alive, and his cultivation had finally broken through the shackles, smoothly reaching the Ultimate Emperor realm. The heavens did not disappoint those who persevered. Huangfu Wuji was very confident that he would be able to enter the top 5 of the Azure Emperor rankings. With the arrival of the Azure Emperor and the others, the top 100 geniuses of the Azure Emperor rankings had already gathered in the square. Around the square, countless onlookers stared at the top 100 geniuses with blazing eyes. They all knew that these top 100 geniuses were the top geniuses of the Azure Mystic Empire. Each one of them was a monstrous genius with extraordinary strength. Moreover, after the ranking tournament began, these top geniuses would have a fierce battle between tigers and dragons. It would be a spectacular showdown. After arriving at the square, the Azure Emperor looked around and nodded with satisfaction. He said in a clear voice, "Today is the day of the Azure Emperor Rankings Tournament. Many geniuses will have a great showdown today." As the Azure Emperor spoke, he waved his sleeve and pointed at the 10 blue stone rings in the center of the square. He continued to say, "These 10 blue stone rings are the locations of the ranking tournament. They are numbered from 1 to 10. The rules are very simple. This emperor will choose 10 groups from the 100 of you. Each group will have 10 people, and they will go to the corresponding rings. The ring battles will be conducted in an elimination system. No matter what method you use, as long as you can eliminate the other geniuses and become the strongest in your group, then you will be able to enter the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings." As these words came out, no one was too surprised. In the past, the ranking tournament had always followed these rules. The 10 blue stone rings would be divided into 10 groups of geniuses. Only the strongest in a group would be able to smoothly enter the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. This system also had a certain degree of ruthlessness and randomness. If the strength of the cultivators in the group that was drawn happened to be on the weaker side, then the strongest person selected would not live up to the name. Some groups would be assigned to several seeded opponents at the same time. Then, the competition in that group would become extremely intense and terrifying. Therefore, there was still a lack of fairness. However, the Azure Emperor emphasized natural selection. The stronger one would be. If a cultivator had a fluke mentality, then he would be a weakling. Such a person would not be qualified to enter the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. Many of the geniuses in the square were stunned when they heard the rules mentioned by the Azure Emperor. Zhuowen was no exception. This method of grouping to determine the strongest person was too random. After all, once a terrifying expert like Huangfu Wudao was assigned to a group, there was no suspense at all. Huangfu Wudao would definitely be the final winner. Moreover, if multiple top 10 monstrous geniuses were assigned to the same group at the same time, one of them would definitely be injured. At that time, one of the top 10 monstrous geniuses would also be eliminated. "Now, I will divide you into groups." Emperor Qing did not care about the other people's expressions. With a wave of his sleeve, a green light spilled out from his sleeve and flew toward the 100 geniuses in the square. Upon closer inspection, these green lights were actually made up of palm-sized bamboo sticks. Zhuowen stretched out his right hand and pinched a green bamboo stick. He turned his hand over and saw that the bamboo stick had the word 8 written on it. Zhuowen knew that he should be assigned to arena number 8 this time. The surrounding geniuses all stretched out their hands to grab the green light in the air and checked the numbers on the bamboo sticks. After all 100 geniuses had received their bamboo sticks, the Lotus the Arch waved his sleeves again, and the green light in the sky disappeared. "Those who have obtained the bamboo sticks, please go to your respective arenas now." Emperor Qing's indifferent and majestic voice sounded again. Whoosh, whoosh. A series of sonic booms immediately sounded out as the many geniuses in the square held their bamboo sticks and rushed towards their respective arenas. Instantly, the sky above the square was filled with countless figures. It was as if a swarm of locusts had passed through. It looked extremely dark and terrifying. Whoosh. Zhuowen instantly arrived at arena number 8. At that moment, there were already 9 other figures standing there. To Zhuowen's surprise, there were a few familiar faces among the 9 figures. "Zhuowen, looks like you're very unlucky to have met me in the group stage." A black-clothed youth with triangular eyes slowly walked toward Zhuowen. He stared coldly at Zhuowen as if he was staring at his prey. "Feng Yong, you're right. You're very unlucky. Coincidentally, I still have to settle the old score from 3 months ago." Zhuowen was not afraid and spoke indifferently. As soon as Zhuowen spoke these words, Feng Yong was stunned. He'd never imagined that not only was Zhuowen not afraid of him, Zhuowen instead seemed to be fearless. Moreover, He faintly sensed that Zhuowen seemed to not take him seriously. Zhuowen's attitude made Feng Yong extremely unhappy. He coldly snorted and said, "It's indeed time to settle the old score. You'll soon know what regret is." As he spoke, Feng Yong returned to the edge of the arena. His cold gaze stared at Zhuowen, as if he could devour him at any time. On arena number 8, besides Feng Yong, there was another person that Zhuowen was familiar with. Zhuowen was also familiar with. His gaze turned slightly and landed on the cold lady with long snow-white hair not far away from arena number 8. The smile on his lips grew even wider. As if she had noticed Zhuowen's gaze, the cold lady also looked over. When she saw Zhuowen, a trace of fear immediately appeared in her beautiful eyes. This lady was the number 1 genius of Icebound County, Wen Aoxue. Ever since Zhuowen robbed her of the extreme amethyst icegrass in the peach blossom origin diagram, Wen Aoxue hated Zhuowen to the core. Chapter 733. The overbearing Huangfu Wudao. The 100 geniuses were divided into 10 groups, each standing on their own arena. Zhuowen glanced around the other arenas, roughly understanding the situation of the other arenas. Huangfu Wudao was in the first arena, Qingyang was in the second arena, Grand Lily was in the third arena, Murongzhon was in the fourth arena, Qingming was in the fifth arena, Guosheng was in the sixth arena, Zhubai was in the seventh arena, and Huangfu Wuji was in the 10th arena. The top 10 geniuses of the Azure Emperor Proclamation were mostly assigned to different arenas. But the 8th arena was extremely different. There were actually 2 top 10 Azure Emperor Proclamation contestants there. They were the 8th ranked Feng Yong and the 10th ranked Cao Yang. Therefore, the 8th arena attracted the attention of many people. This 8th arena is really unlucky. It was actually assigned to 2 top 10 Azure Emperor Proclamation contestants. I'm afraid that Feng Yong and Cao Yang will have a fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. Don't forget, the 8th arena also has Wen Aoxue. Wen Aoxue is the number 1 genius of the 8 great counties, and he is ranked 11th on the Azure Emperor Proclamation. His strength is also not weak. There is also that Zhuowen who suddenly rose up. That boy is also not weak. I'm afraid that he isn't as simple as he seems. The competition for the 8th arena is probably the most intense out of the 10 arenas. Complicated discussions immediately sounded around the square. Numerous gazes were thrown towards the number 8 arena. Everyone's eyes revealed a heated and expectant expression. The 8th arena was filled with powerhouses. There would inevitably be a great battle. It was unlike the other arenas where the top 10 geniuses of the Azure Emperor Proclamation dominated. There was no suspense to the outcome. This boy is really unlucky. He actually ran into Cao Yang and Feng Yong. On the 10th martial arena, Huangfu Wuji crossed his arms across his chest. He was high up in the air, looking down at the 8th martial arena with a mocking sneer on his face. In his opinion, Zhuowen meeting Feng Yong ahead of time meant that he was doomed to lose. Although Feng Yong's ranking was lower than his strength was not bad. Back then, they had been evenly matched. Now that he had broken through, his strength was far higher than Feng Yong's, but Feng Yong's strength could not be underestimated. He was not someone that Zhuowen could resist. In the 3rd arena, Grand Lily also noticed the situation in the 8th arena. Her eyes were filled with ridicule, but she didn't say a word. Outside the arena, Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian frowned. They didn't think that Zhuowen would encounter such a strong opponent. Cao Yang was ranked 10th, and his cultivation level was around the mid-stage of the 7-wheel Emperor realm. Lu Hantian knew that with Zhuowen's strength, Cao Yang should be able to defeat him. But Feng Yong was different. Feng Yong was much stronger than Cao Yang. He had a cultivation at the peak of the extreme 7-wheel Emperor realm. His strength was terrifying. Lu Hantian was also worried for Zhuowen. Zhuowen hadn't mentioned the increase in his martial arts cultivation and mental strength to Lu Hantian. Thus, Lu Hantian still believed that Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the early extreme 7-wheel Emperor realm. Thus, he was a bit worried. Zhuowen naturally heard the discussions around him clearly. However, he did not take it to heart. With his current strength, entering the top 10 of the Azure Emperor proclamation wasn't a problem. As for that Feng Yong, Zhuowen didn't care too much about him. Looking around the 10 arenas, Zhuowen also discovered the other geniuses of Muqin County. Luitao was in the 9th arena. What surprised Zhuowen was that there wasn't anyone in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor proclamation in the 9th arena. The warriors there were generally weaker. Luitao was ranked 15th on the Azure Emperor proclamation. In the 9th arena, his cultivation was considered top-notch. The only person who could pose a threat to him was probably the number 1 genius of Shijiang County, the Lightless Monk. The Lightless Monk was ranked 14th on the Azure Emperor proclamation. He was very low-key and always had a kind smile on his face. His palms were clasped together and he looked very amiable. Looking at the Lightless Monk in the 9th arena, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. It was said that Shijiang County worshipped ancient Buddhas and had countless temples. The lord of the county was a Buddha named Withered Lamp Buddha. What surprised Zhuowen was that the Lightless Monk, who had a kind smile, gave him a feeling that he couldn't see through him. This feeling was very strange. He knew that the Lightless Monk was definitely not simple. Originally, after obtaining the Nirvana Vairocana, Zhuowen had suspected that there might be a mysterious Buddhism in the Heavenly Armor continent. Now, it seemed that Buddhism really existed. After all, the warriors in Shijiang County worshipped ancient Buddhas and their dressing was similar to the monks in temples on Earth. The Lightless Monk, who was standing quietly in the 9th arena, seemed to have noticed Zhuowen's gaze. He slowly tilted his head and stared at Zhuowen. The corners of his mouth curled up into a kind smile as he nodded at Zhuowen. Zhuowen also nodded in return. However, his heart was heavy. He felt that the Lightless Monk was very strong. The possibility of Luitao defeating the Lightless Monk was very low. In Muqin County, other than Luitao, Luo Xing and Qing Lian were in the 2nd and 5th arenas respectively. The two of them were unlucky. Their arenas were basically filled with the top 10 geniuses on the Azure Emperor proclamation. It was almost impossible for the two of them to stand out in their respective arenas. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Air-rending sounds suddenly flew out from the throne room. When the crowd looked over, they realized that there were actually 10 figures flying out from the throne room. The 10 of them were middle-aged men in armor. Their auras were surging and they were full of killing intent. With one look, one could tell that they were soldiers who had been on the battlefield for many years. The 10 great generals of the empire. I didn't expect His Majesty the Azure Emperor to even gather these 10. It seems that he places great importance on this ranking battle. The crowd immediately recognized the 10 figures that suddenly flew out from the throne room. Their faces were filled with shock. The Qingxian Empire had a vast territory. Furthermore, outside the 10 borders of the Qingxian Empire, there were 3 other empires. Their strength was not inferior to the Qingxian Empire. Over the years, the neighboring powers would inevitably have conflicts and wars. Therefore, the Qingxian Empire's borders would always have 10 generals guarding the 10 borders to prevent enemy invasions. Each of the 10 generals was extremely powerful. They were at the peak of the ultimate 9-wheel emperor realm. Furthermore, because they had been on the battlefield for many years and killed people like flies, the killing intent on their bodies was terrifying. They could also use this killing intent to suppress martial artists. Therefore, although these 10 generals were only at the peak of the ultimate 9-wheel emperor realm, with the killing intent in their bodies and their rich experience, ordinary martial artists in the initial stage of the Xuanzuan realm would probably not be a match for these 10 generals. Your subordinates pay their respects to His Majesty the Azure Emperor. The 10 generals in armor suddenly landed in front of the Azure Emperor and knelt on one knee. Their voices were like rolling thunder, resounding through the clouds. No need for formalities. I'll have to trouble the 10 of you in this ranking battle. The Azure Emperor nodded and said rather warmly, "It's our honor to serve your Majesty." The 10 generals replied meticulously, "Millimeter. Now that the ranking battle has begun, each of you will be in charge of 10 arenas. As for which arena you want, you can choose it yourselves." The Azure Emperor smiled faintly. The 10 generals nodded. With a step, they flew toward the center of the square. The 10 arenas flew and landed in the center of their respective arenas. They looked down at the 10 geniuses below their respective arenas. Boom! A terrifying killing intent burst out from the 10 generals' bodies. The blood-red killing intent was so substantial that it almost filled the entire arena. The faces of the geniuses around the arenas turned ugly when they felt the killing intent. Many of them even turned ghastly pale. Me. Are you trying to intimidate me? You're just a border general. Get out of here. A domineering and cruel voice suddenly rang out from arena number 1. Following which, an unruly figure suddenly flew into the arena. He ignored the killing intent in the surroundings and flew toward the general in the center. Everyone looked over in shock and discovered that the person who had suddenly attacked was the first prince, Huangfu Wudao. The general in arena number 1 had not expected such an unforeseen event. Looking at the figure that was flying toward him, a cold light flickered in his eyes. He took a step forward, and boundless killing intent condensed into a long spear that was several feet long. Kill! With a loud shout, the long spear in the general's hand flew out like a horse that had escaped its reins. It instantly pierced toward Huangfu Wudao. Insignificant skill. Huangfu Wudao was extremely overbearing. The corners of his mouth held a cold smile. With a wave of his right hand, countless cyclones shot out from within his body. They were dense and looked extremely terrifying. Rumble. The killing intent spear blasted onto the cyclones and was actually directly frozen. With a crack, the terrifying killing intent spear was actually directly shattered into pieces by the cyclones. The general's pupils constricted. He never imagined that Huangfu Wudao's strength would actually be so terrifying. He was actually able to so easily annihilate his killing intent spear. Swoosh! As soon as the killing intent spear was destroyed, Huangfu Wudao's figure instantly arrived before the general. A cruel smile appeared on the corners of his mouth as his right hand formed into a fist and smashed out. Strands of terrifying cyclones covered his fist, causing the air to whistle as if it was being torn apart. Ha! The general shouted loudly and similarly smashed out a fist. Blood-red killing intent formed a layer of blood-red scales on his fist. Rumble. The two fists fiercely smashed together. Instantly, a ring-shaped wave of air violently spread out with the two of them as the center. The expressions of the other 9 geniuses around arena number 1 changed drastically as they were pushed back by the wave of air. Crack. The hard limestone arena was actually unable to withstand the strength of the two people. Dense cracks began to appear on its surface and continuously spread. In the end, the entire arena collapsed. Countless pieces of rock floated up and dust filled the field of vision. What terrifying strength! The surrounding people all revealed expressions of shock. The border general was an expert at the peak of the ultimate ninth wheel emperor realm. With the addition of the killing intent on his body, even an initial stage cultivator of the Xuanzuan realm might not necessarily be a match for this border general. However, the first prince, Huangfu Wudao, was actually able to directly clash with this border general and even faintly gain the upper hand. Thump! Thump! Chapter 734. The battle began. 100 steps away, this sorry figure suddenly stomped on the ground, and the terrifying force practically created an enormous pit of over 10 meters on the ground before he was able to completely stabilize himself. The gazes of everyone moved slightly and converged onto this figure. Their pupils constricted when they noticed that this sorry figure was actually the border general. At this moment, the border general's face was pale, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His gaze contained a trace of terror as he gazed at the dust before him. The border general had actually fallen into a disadvantageous position in the confrontation earlier, and had even been injured because of it. Huangfu Wudao's strength was actually so terrifying that even the border general was unable to gain the slightest advantage against him. Stomp! 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 Dust suffused the air from the ruins of the arena as a figure slowly walked out. Huangfu Wudao stopped 10 meters away from the border general and said in a ghastly voice, "You aren't qualified to preside over my battle. Now fuck off." As soon as these words were spoken, the border general's expression changed slightly. Huangfu Wudao actually didn't give him the slightest bit of face and directly asked him to fuck off. What? Not going to fuck off? Then die. Huangfu Wudao grinned and revealed a row of ghastly white teeth. He stomped his foot and instantly flashed towards the border general, not giving the border general the slightest chance to speak. The border general's expression changed greatly as he suddenly shouted. Countless strands of baleful aura surged out, and the surface of his armor revealed a strange blood-red color. Moreover, the blood-red color was like small snakes that ceaselessly wriggled before finally transforming into sharp blood-red horns. A terrifying and ferocious aura burst out from the border general's body, and it was as if the border general had transformed into a terrifying primeval beast at this moment. Blood beast howl. With a fierce howl, countless strands of baleful aura surged behind the border general and condensed into a terrifying enormous beast that was over 100 meters in size and possessed countless savage blood-red horns. Awu! The terrifying enormous beast roared towards the sky as its front hooves that were like pillars that supported the heavens fiercely dug into the ground. It transformed into a blood-red shadow that flashed towards Huangfu Wudao and instantly arrived before him. The enormous beast claw that was half a man's size clawed towards Huangfu Wudao. Surging howls sounded out in the air, and it seemed extremely horrifying at this moment. The corners of Huangfu Wudao's mouth was filled with a ridiculing smile as he lightly stretched out his right palm. Instantly, countless cyclones that were like whirlpools in water created a terrifying suction force. Rumble. Huangfu Wudao's seemingly insignificant palm lightly struck the enormous beast claw. Following which, the surrounding crowd was astonished to discover that the terrifying blood-colored beast had actually stopped in midair as if it had been frozen. Awoo! A miserable shriek was immediately emitted from the mouth of the blood-colored giant beast. Subsequently, the mountain-like giant beast exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Countless drops of blood turned into a rain of blood that sprinkled down in a pitter-patter. Huangfu Wudao smiled coldly. With a flick of his sleeve, countless cyclones surrounded his body, leaving his clothes spotless. Whoosh! As soon as the blood-colored enormous beast died, Huangfu Wudao's figure flashed and instantly arrived before the border general. His right palm suddenly pressed down, and countless cyclones transformed into dense air blades that flashed towards the border general below. First Prince, I am the general of the southern border. It was His Majesty who ordered me to host the arena. Do you dare to kill me? The border general raised both of his hands. Instantly, countless baleful auras turned into monstrous waves, blocking the terrifying chi blades above. However, Huangfu Wudao's strength was too strong. He simply couldn't block these chi blades for too long. Once the baleful auras were broken, he would undoubtedly die. I know, but you still have to die. Huangfu Wudao's voice was unquestionable. His right hand pressed down once again, and the power of the chi blades increased by several times. Instantly, the monstrous baleful auras were directly cut apart by the chi blades. Poochie. The chi blades arrived in an instant. The border general didn't even have the chance to make a sound before he was directly torn apart by the sharp chi blades. Not even his bones remained. Do you still plan to fight me in the arena? After killing the border general, Huangfu Wudao's gaze shifted to the 9 geniuses who were also in the first arena. His voice was as cold as the winter of the 12th lunar month. Looking at the border general's corpse that didn't even have a single bone remaining, as well as Huangfu Wudao's cold and terrifying eyes, the other 9 geniuses couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. We forfeit. Without any surprise, the other 9 geniuses in the first arena all chose to forfeit. Huangfu Wudao's strength was too terrifying, and his methods were too cruel. He even dared to kill the border general who was in charge of the competition, let alone them. If they really fought with Huangfu Wudao, their fates would likely be much more miserable than the border general's. 9 pieces of trash. Huangfu Wudao coldly smiled as he indifferently said. As these words came out, the figures of the 9 geniuses who were about to leave paused. They didn't dare to stay in the first arena any longer, and left with their tails between their legs. The geniuses in the other 9 arenas naturally saw what had happened in the first arena, and their gazes turned cold. The first prince, Huangfu Wudao, was overbearing and cruel. He even killed the border general who was in charge of the competition, and directly threatened the other 9 geniuses to forfeit. He was really too overbearing and unreasonable. The eyes of the 9 generals standing in the center of the other arenas narrowed. Their gazes towards Huangfu Wudao contained a strong sense of dread. The border general that was killed earlier was the commander that guarded the southern border, and his nickname was General Savage Beast. At this moment, his blood actually dyed the arena in the imperial city red. Moreover, Emperor Qing, who stood nearby, didn't say anything when General Savage Beast was killed, and he didn't even stand out. Obviously, Emperor Qing had already tacitly approved of Huangfu Wudao's actions. Li Jin, appoint a new commander of the southern border. Emperor Qing's deep gaze was filled with indifference, and no one was able to guess exactly what he was thinking. The expression of Li Jin, who stood by Emperor Qing's side, turned cold when he heard these words. He knew that Emperor Qing wouldn't pursue the matter with Huangfu Wudao for the death of General Savage Beast. The other geniuses in the first arena forfeited. Huangfu Wudao directly entered the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. Emperor Qing spoke in a clear voice. As soon as these words were spoken, an uproar arose in the surrounding crowd, and everyone looked at Huangfu Wudao with gazes filled with dread. Not only did Emperor Qing not blame Huangfu Wudao for killing the border general, but he also smoothly allowed Huangfu Wudao to enter the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. It was clear that Emperor Qing valued Huangfu Wudao far more than everyone expected. Huangfu Wudao nodded and silently walked to the side. He leaned against a stone pillar and looked indifferently at the geniuses in the other 9 arenas, his eyes filled with domineering disdain. In the 8th arena, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and stared at Huangfu Wudao's figure with a look of intense dread. Huangfu Wudao was very strong. Even if Zhuowen used all his trump cards, he still didn't think that he would be Huangfu Wudao's match. It was said that Huangfu Wudao was only at the peak of the ultimate 9th Wheel Emperor stage, but his battle strength was comparable to a late-stage Xuanzuan realm cultivator. This was also why Huangfu Wudao killed the border general as easily as killing a dog. The disturbance in the first arena didn't last for long, and the battles in the other arenas had already begun. In the center of the 8th arena, a middle-aged man with a pale face and no beard was presiding over the battles. He wore silver armor. This man was nicknamed the Silver Dragon General, and he guarded the northern border. He was also at the peak of the ultimate 9th Wheel Emperor stage, and was on par with the Savage Beast General. The Silver Dragon General looked around at the 10 geniuses below the 8th arena with a cold look in his eyes. The battles begin now. I will decide who you will fight. You won't have any objections, right? The Silver Dragon General said indifferently. No. The 10 geniuses shook their heads. The Silver Dragon General nodded and slowly scanned the 10 geniuses with his hawk-like eyes. He suddenly pointed at 2 of them and said, "The 2 of you will start. The rules are simple. You just have to defeat your opponent, no matter what method you use." The gazes of the other 8 geniuses gathered and immediately fell on the 2 geniuses. Then, a trace of surprise appeared in their eyes. One of the 2 people that were pointed out was actually the number 1 genius of the Icebound County, Wen Ao Shui, and the other was actually Zhuo Wen, who had been in the limelight recently. Both of them were very strong, and it would probably be a rather intense battle this time. Zhuowen raised his eyebrows. He hadn't expected to be the first to be pointed at. He shrugged his shoulders and leaped onto the arena. Then, he looked at Wen Aoshui, who was below the arena. At this moment, on the stage, a trace of hesitation surfaced on Wen Aoshui's cold and beautiful face as her white hair fluttered in the wind. She clenched her teeth. She did not expect that she would meet Zhuo Wen, the opponent that she did not want to meet the most. Are you still not coming up? I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't come up, I'll take it as you forfeit. The Silver Dragon General could also see the hesitation on Wen Aoshui's face. He snorted impatiently. Wen Aoshui's beautiful eyes flickered. She took a step forward and finally stepped onto the arena. Her cold eyes stared straight at Zhuowen. Looks like our luck is pretty good. We actually met again, Zhuowen said lazily. Yeah, our luck is pretty good. Wen Aoshui gritted her teeth and said word by word. The fight between Wen Aoshue and Zhuowen had attracted the attention of everyone in the square. Among them, the Icebound County's county lord, Profound Iceman, frowned slightly. He hadn't expected Wen Aoshue to meet such a difficult opponent like Zhuowen. In 3 months, Aoshue's cultivation has reached the ultimate 7-wheel emperor realm. She has a good chance of winning against Zhuowen. Profound Iceman muttered to himself. Wen Aoshue had worked extremely hard in the past 3 months. She had finally broken through the shackles and reached the initial 7-wheel emperor realm. Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the same level. Therefore, Profound Iceman didn't think that Zhuowen had a 100% chance of winning against Wen Aoshue. Zhuowen, I'm no longer the same as before. Perhaps the one who will lose this time will be you. Wen Aoshue snorted. A terrifying aura surged out. She had actually completely unleashed the aura of the ultimate 7-wheel emperor realm. Her white hair danced in the wind like snowflakes. Oh! You've broken through? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed as he felt the aura released by Wen Aoshue. He was rather surprised. Zhuowen, you're not the only one who's improved. I'm also improving. We don't know who will win today. As she spoke, Wen Aoshue took a step forward. She was wrapped in cold air as she flew towards Zhuowen. Countless snowflakes danced in the air like a fairy. You're only at the initial 7-wheel emperor realm. It's about the same for me. Chapter 735. Cao Yang. The battle between Zhuowen and Wen Aoshue had attracted the attention of many people. Wen Aoshue was the number 1 genius of the 8 counties and was ranked 11th on the Green Emperor leaderboard. He was one of the most popular contenders for the top 10. Zhuowen was a nobody. However, after the Battle of the 9 Counties, he had single-handedly eliminated many geniuses from the Lihua County. His reputation had gradually risen in the imperial capital and he had become a hot topic. The 2 geniuses that many people thought highly of were going to meet in the first round. This naturally attracted the attention of many people. I wonder who will be the final winner of the battle between Zhuowen and Wen Aoshue. It should be Wen Aoshue. It is said that Wen Aoshue has already broken through to the ultimate 7-wheel emperor stage. As for Zhuowen, he is not famous. He should not be as strong as Wen Aoshue. No, it is said that Zhuowen is also an initial 7-wheel emperor stage practitioner. His strength is not inferior to Wen Aoshue's. It is hard to predict the outcome of the battle between the 2. This battle will definitely be a fierce battle. The discussion was like a tsunami, causing a huge uproar in the surrounding square. Most people's gazes were focused on the 8th arena. They were looking forward to the battle between Zhuowen and Wen Aoshue. Swoosh! Wen Aoshue's long hair fluttered in the wind. Countless ice crystals revolved around his body like a cold current. It looked extremely terrifying. In an instant, Wen Aoshue launched an attack. She stretched out her slender hand and countless ice crystals were under her control. They turned into a giant ice python that was dozens of feet long. Its waist was as thick as a water bucket. Ice python. With a delicate snort, Wen Aoshue waved her jade-like hand. The frost python raised its head to the sky and let out a shrill hiss. It carried with it an endless amount of cold air as it shot straight towards Zhuowen at an extremely fast speed. Zhuowen shook his head. He stretched out his right hand and the bone spear in his hand started to spin. Soon after, he threw it out. Swoosh! The bone spear was like an arrow that had been released from a bow. It pierced through the air and rushed towards the ice python. Its speed was much faster than the ice python's. Furthermore, boundless blue spear images appeared around the bone spear as a mysterious power surged out. It was the spear intent that Zhuowen had grasped. Bang! The bone spear instantly struck the frost python's forehead. Following that, everyone was shocked to discover that the scales on the surface of the frost python were like paper to the bone spear. Whoosh! In the instant of the collision, the bone spear pierced through the frost python's forehead and continued to fly towards Wen Aoshue. Wen Aoshue's pretty face greatly changed. She did not expect that the frost python would be unable to withstand a single blow from Zhuowen's bone spear. Her heart was filled with shock. This Juoan is a lot stronger than when he was in the peach blossom origin pattern. How did he improve so quickly? When Aoshue turned pale with fright. Zhuowen's improvement made her somewhat fearful. She had originally thought that she would be able to suppress Juoan once she had advanced to the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm. However, it now seemed that this was simply a pipe dream. Gritting her teeth, when Aoshue's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of determination. She slowly extended her right hand, and on her pure white wrist, there was a crystal-clear jade bracelet. This jade bracelet was snow-white in color, and it faintly revealed a frightening chill. Inquiring mirror icicle. When Aoshue's cherry lips opened and closed as a crisp voice rang out from her lips. Following which, a terrifying blue chill burst forth from the jade bracelet on her right hand. The terrifying blue chill actually condensed into huge icicles that seemed to support the heavens in front of Wen Aoshue. The icicles pierced the sky, and the chill permeated the air. A total of 10 huge icicles stood in front of Wen Aoshue, looking extremely majestic and magnificent. Ding! A clear and melodious sound suddenly resounded from the 10 icicles. The bone spears that were like a hot knife through butter actually came to a halt the instant they collided with the icicles. What sturdy icicles! Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. The might of the inquiring mirror icicles that Wen Aoshue had suddenly used had somewhat exceeded his expectations. Thinking up to here, Zhuowen's foot stomped on the ground, and he instantly arrived in front of the icicles. His right hand grasped the bone spear, and golden light burst forth as he used the nirvana of the great sun. A powerful force acted on the bone spear, greatly increasing its might. Catcher! The icicles instantly shattered, and Zhuowen followed like a shadow, arriving in front of Wen Aoshue. He fiercely swung his bone spear, and it turned into many spear shadows, blasting towards Wen Aoshue's chest. Inquiring mirror icicle. Wen Aoshue's expression changed greatly. She swiped her jade-like hand in front of her chest, and countless icicles gathered, forming a sparkling and translucent oval ice mirror. It's useless. Zhuowen's cold voice rang out, and the bone spear that was wrapped in spear shadows instantly smashed onto the ice mirror. The seemingly sturdy ice mirror shattered into countless pieces like glass. Poochie. Wen Aoshue's delicate body was sent flying, and thick blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth as she landed outside the arena. The Silver Dragon General looked at Zhuowen in astonishment. He actually could not see through this youth in front of him. When Zhuowen attacked just now, he had not used any moves from the beginning to the end. With just a single spear, all of Wen Aoshue's defenses had been broken. Anyone with a discerning eye could easily see the difference between the two. The first round, Zhuowen wins. The Silver Dragon General expressionlessly announced. His gaze fell on the remaining 8 people, and he continued, next, Liu Long and Hansen. Zhuowen slowly walked down from the arena, and 2 youths walked out from the 8 people below. They looked at each other, and both of them leaped onto the arena. Under the command of the Silver Dragon General, the battle began. At this moment, the surrounding crowd was a little surprised. Originally, they had thought that the battle between Zhuowen and Wen Aoshue would be a fierce battle. But in the end, Wen Aoshue was actually eliminated by Zhuowen with a single spear strike. This result was a huge contrast to what they had imagined. Feng Yong, who was among the 8 people, narrowed his eyes as he stared at Zhuowen's back. His expression began to turn serious. This Zhuowen did not seem as weak as he had imagined. No matter what, this Zhuowen is not likely to be a match for me. When we meet, I will make him suffer a fate worse than death. With a cold snort, Feng Yong no longer paid any attention to Zhuowen. He was very confident in his own strength. With his cultivation at the peak of the Ultimate Emperor stage and the Feng family's unique secret technique, he believed that even if Zhuowen had grasped spear intent, it was unlikely that he would be a match for him. The battle in the arena proceeded in an orderly manner. Soon, the first round of battles ended. Half of the 10 people had been eliminated, and only 5 people were left. These 5 people were Zhuowen, Feng Yong, Cao Yang, Liu Long, and Chen Xin. Among them, Liu Long and Chen Xin were geniuses from the Imperial family and Icebound County respectively. These two people were not very strong. They were only ultimate emperors, and were considered to be at the bottom of the 5 people. The first round of battles in the other arenas also ended one after another. Lv Yitao, Luo Xing, and Qing Lian, whom Zhuowen was concerned about, had all smoothly advanced to the second round. As for the other geniuses from Muqin County, they had all been eliminated in the first round. What was noteworthy was that the number 3 Grand Lily, number 4 Murong Zhon, number 6 Guo Sheng, and number 10 Huangfu Wuji had all chosen to end the first round of battles by fighting 1 against 9. They had fought against 9 geniuses by themselves, and all 4 of them had won. In other words, after the first round had ended, the 4 of them had already stood out from the rest and smoothly obtained a spot in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list. The Azure Emperor, who was standing on the high platform in the plaza, nodded in appreciation at the method the 4 of them had adopted. However, compared to Huangfu Wudao's method of directly killing the border general, there was still a gap between the 4 of them. After all, the border general was a powerhouse at the peak of the ultimate emperor realm. Only Huangfu Wudao could kill such a powerhouse. No one else could accomplish such a magnificent feat currently. A total of 5 people had advanced to the top 10. They were Huangfu Wudao, Huangfu Wuji, Grand Lily, Murong Zhon, and Guo Sheng. At this time, the 5 of them had already been summoned back to the high platform by the Azure Emperor. They were silently watching the remaining 5 arenas below. The second round soon began. There were 5 people left, so they had to draw lots. One of them would be given a bye, and the remaining 4 would fight in pairs. After drawing lots, the bye was given to the 8th-seeded contestant, Feng Yong. Holding the bye bamboo stick, Feng Yong slowly walked to the side of the arena. As he passed by Zhuowen, he sneered in a low voice, "Little bastard, I'll let you be happy for a while. Once the group finals begin, your luck will come to an end. Whose luck is better than dog shit? You can even draw a bye. Your good luck will be ended by me in the group finals," Zhuowen retorted sarcastically. Feng Yong narrowed his eyes and coldly snorted, "Then we'll see. When the time comes, I'll make you kneel in front of me." After speaking, Feng Yong directly passed by Zhuowen and went to a corner. He quietly stared at Zhuowen's figure on the 8th arena, his eyes full of gloomy coldness. "You two come up and fight." Feng Yong was given a bye. The Silver Dragon General pointed at Liu Long and Chen Xin in the arena and lightly said, "You two come up and fight first." Liu Long and Chen Xin's eyes flashed when they heard this. They nodded and jumped onto the arena, staring at each other. Below the arena, Cao Yang, who had been silent, suddenly raised his foot and walked towards Zhuowen. He stood 1 meter away from Zhuowen and lightly said, "In our next fight, you forfeit." Hearing this, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and looked at Cao Yang as if he was looking at an idiot. He indifferently replied, "You want me to forfeit? Who do you think you are?" Zhuowen's words immediately caused Cao Yang's face to darken. He coldly said, "Your name is Zhuowen. I know that. Moreover, your cultivation should be at the early stage of the ultimate 7-wheel emperor realm. Moreover, you've grasped spear intent. According to true battle strength, your strength should be comparable to the intermediate stage of the ultimate 7-wheel emperor realm. However, my strength has already reached the advanced stage of the ultimate 7-wheel emperor realm. I have the strength to fight Feng Yong, but you have no chance." Hearing this, Zhuowen sneered in his heart. He had already guessed Cao Yang's thoughts. In Cao Yang's opinion, Zhuowen's strength was too weak and had no chance against Feng Yong. Moreover, Cao Yang's strength was very close to Feng Yong's. Feng Yong probably didn't want to exhaust too much essence force on Zhuowen. After all, Cao Yang's cultivation was lower than Feng Yong's. If he used too much origin energy on Zhuowen, the loss would outweigh the gain. At that time, he wouldn't have much of a chance against Feng Yong. Therefore, Cao Yang wanted Zhuowen to forfeit. "Have you thought it through? I am the number 1 genius of the Cao clan. There is no benefit in offending the Cao clan," Cao Yang said loftily. In his opinion, Zhuowen was from Muqin County and came from a humble background. On the other hand, the Cao clan was one of the 5 great clans and had great influence. He didn't believe that Zhuowen would risk offending the Cao clan by rejecting him. Chapter 736. Five-wheel adamantium palm. Cao Yang's eyes narrowed when he heard this. He said coldly, "You want me to scram? What? Are you still not going to scram?" Zhuowen said expressionlessly. Good, good. You've got guts. Zhuowen, let's see how you'll get out of this embarrassing situation when you face me later. Cao Yang returned to his seat after saying this. However, his eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Zhuowen. In Cao Yang's opinion, Zhuowen was just too ignorant. He knew that Cao Yang was the #1 genius of the Cao clan, yet he still didn't give him any face. He would definitely teach Zhuowen a lesson when the two of them faced each other later. Liu Long and Chen Xin's battle was extremely intense. Both of them were ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators with similar strength, so they were evenly matched. This caused the blood of the spectators to boil. A grunt rang out. Chen Xin was a step too late. Liu Long had found an opening and punched Chen Xin in the chest. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying out of the ring. Liu Long wins. The Silver Dragon General replied expressionlessly. Liu Long was in a rather sorry state at this moment. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth and his face was pale. However, his face was filled with excitement. After Liu Long left the ring, the Silver Dragon General looked at Zhuowen and Cao Yang below the ring. He said indifferently, "It's your turn now. Come up." Cao Yang sneered and leapt onto the ring. He stared coldly at Zhuowen and shouted, "Why aren't you coming up to die?" Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and leapt onto the ring as well. He said coldly, "Did you just say that you wanted me to die?" Cao Yang snorted coldly, "What? Do you have a problem with that? Fists and legs have no eyes. It's not like killing you is a big deal. Fists and legs have no eyes. If I beat you to death, would you have no complaints?" Zhuowen said coldly. Zhuowen knew that Cao Yang was targeting him because he had rejected his request. Moreover, Cao Yang's strong killing intent caused Zhuowen's heart to turn even colder. He was very clear that Cao Yang really intended to kill him. "Since you're heartless, then don't blame me for being unjust." Thinking of this, Zhuowen's eyes also surged with a cold light. He, Zhuowen, was not a person who stirred up trouble, but he was also not someone who would let others bully him. The confrontation between Zhuowen and Cao Yang attracted the attention of many people. The fact that Zhuowen had defeated Wen Ao Shui in the first round had already attracted the attention of many people. They could all sense that Zhuowen had the strength to be ranked in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor ranking list. He had the potential to be ranked in the top 10. Cao Yang was originally ranked 10th on the Azure Emperor ranking list, one place ahead of Wen Ao Shui. His strength was also not to be underestimated. Although Zhuowen could defeat Wen Ao Shui, Cao Yang's strength was much stronger than Wen Ao Shui's. Perhaps Zhuowen had a chance of defeating Cao Yang, but it was definitely not very high. Feng Yong leaned against a stone pillar as he stared at the two figures in the arena. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile as he muttered to himself, "Cao Yang's cultivation has also reached the late stage of the seven-wheel Emperor realm. It will be very difficult for Zhuowen to defeat Cao Yang. I originally wanted to teach this Zhuowen a lesson, but now it seems like it's not very possible. However, the enmity of killing my Feng family's disciple will not be forgotten so easily. When the ranking tournament ends, this kid will still have to die." As he spoke to her, Feng Yong's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He couldn't forget the scene of that little bastard Zhuowen killing Feng Xiong in front of everyone 3 months ago. At that time, he had solemnly vowed in front of Feng Xiong to regain face for him. But he never imagined that Feng Xiong would die in front of him. How could Feng Yong not be angry in his heart? On the high platform, the 5 people who had already entered the top 10 of the Azure Emperor ranking list also noticed that Zhuowen and Cao Yang were up against each other. The 5 of them all had different expressions on their faces. Huangfu Wudao's expression was cold, overbearing, and ruthless. Grand Lily and Huangfu Wuji had mocking expressions. Murong Zhon had a thoughtful expression, but Guosheng frowned. This Zhuowen is sure to lose. Cao Yang's cultivation is already at the late stage of the seven-wheel Emperor realm. His strength is much stronger than that little bastard Zhuowen's. Huangfu Wuji suddenly said in a cold voice. That's not necessarily true. Zhuowen has also grasped the advanced spear intent. So what if his cultivation is lower than Cao Yang's? His strength might not be any worse than Cao Yang's. Guosheng suddenly retorted. Humph. So what if he grasps spear intent? Zhuowen's cultivation is only at the early stage of the seven-wheel emperor realm. He is 2 small realms lower than Cao Yang. Even if he has spear intent, it is unlikely that he is Cao Yang's match. Grand Lily suddenly interjected. Haha. Everyone, there is no need to argue. Who will win and who will lose will only be known after the two of them truly fight. It is too early to discuss this. Murongzhon, who had not spoken, suddenly spoke up with a smile, as if he were the peacemaker. As Murongzhon spoke, Huangfu Wuji and the others tacitly fell silent. Their eyes were filled with dread as they looked at Murongzhon. The Murong family was the strongest of the 5 great families. They had a deep background and produced many talented individuals. This Murongzhon was the #1 genius of the Murong family. His strength was unfathomable, and he was ranked 2nd on the Azure Emperor ranking list. Although Murongzhon seemed to be smiling, this person was a classic example of a sinister person. He might smile in front of you, but he might stab you in the back. It was impossible to guard against him. Even though Huangfu Wuji, Grand Lily, and Guosheng were powerful, and the forces behind them were not weak, they were still afraid of Murongzhon. It was not only because the Murong family was powerful, but also because Murongzhon was too dangerous. On the number 8 combat ring, the Silver Dragon General glanced indifferently at Zhuo Wen and Cao Yang, who were facing each other from afar, and then he said, "Begin the battle now. Those who leave the arena will be eliminated." As soon as the Silver Dragon General spoke, Cao Yang gave a loud shout and released all of his aura. His clothes fluttered without any wind. One move. Zhuowen, listen well. I can kill you in one move. After he finished speaking, Cao Yang took a step forward. His entire body turned into a shadow as he rushed towards Zhuowen. In an instant, he arrived above Zhuowen. 5-wheel hard copper palm, Cao Yang shouted. He stretched out his right hand and slammed it down. Suddenly, countless amounts of yuan power gathered behind him and condensed into 5 terrifying copper wheels. The 5 copper wheels rotated in the air, releasing a terrifying aura that was as vast as a mountain. This Cao Yang used his best move, the 5-ring hard copper palm, right from the start. Is he planning to kill Zhuo Wen directly? Looking at the 5 copper wheels in the air, Feng Yong's smile widened. The 5-wheel hard copper palm was Cao Yang's unique skill. Its power was terrifying. Feng Yong believed that under this attack, Zhuowen would be badly injured even if he didn't die. Everyone in the square stared at the 5 copper wheels that had suddenly appeared in the air. Their expressions were extremely interesting. What a terrifying attack. Is Cao Yang planning to end the battle in one move? This is the Cao family's 5-wheel hard copper palm. Although Cao Yang is a late-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm martial artist, when he uses this attack, even a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm martial artist would not dare to casually take it head-on. That Zhuowen is in danger. The 5-wheel hard copper palm is very terrifying. An uproar rang out around the square like a tsunami. They had all recognized the 5-wheel hard copper palm that Cao Yang had used. Above the 5 copper wheels, Cao Yang's face was full of self-satisfaction. He looked down at Zhuowen as if he was looking at a dead man. As the successor of the Cao family, he was well aware of the power of this move. Before him, Zhuowen was only an early-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm martial artist. Under this move, he would definitely die. Die. Zhuowen. With a loud shout, Cao Yang immediately controlled the 5 huge copper wheels and suddenly shot towards the arena below. The copper wheels cut through the air, creating a powerful airflow that actually caused the gravity within the arena to increase by several times. Quite a number of nearby practitioners even began to miserably stumble and lose their balance. In the center of the arena, Zhuowen stood quietly. He raised his head and stared at the 5 copper wheels in the air. A faint smile appeared on his face. Rumble. An extremely terrifying aura spread out. Zhuowen's clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. The surrounding space was torn apart and turned into countless fragments. Zhuowen had finally completely released his true cultivation. The aura of a peak ultimate emperor realm martial artist. In the air, Cao Yang, who had been very pleased with himself, could not help but exclaim when he saw the aura that Zhuowen had released. This spear has a soul. It's called spear intent, Zhuowen muttered softly. The bone spear in his hand trembled. Countless spear shadows that constantly swam around like tadpoles spread out from Zhuowen's body. They formed a terrifying spear intent domain around him. Zhuowen grasped the shaft of the bone spear with his right hand and suddenly threw it. The bone spear immediately emitted a sharp sound and shot towards the sky. Countless spear shadows spread out in layers, forming a huge blue spear seal. Rumble. The blue spear seal formed by spear intent was extremely terrifying. It blasted against the 5 copper wheels in the air. Instantly, a terrifying explosion set off. Immediately after, the 5 copper wheels with terrifying power were shattered by the blue spear seal like paper. Poochie. In the air, Cao Yang spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated dozens of steps. His face was filled with shock. His 5 copper wheels had been broken just like that. How was this possible? The surroundings also fell into a strange silence. Everyone stared blankly at the 5 copper wheels that had been broken. Originally, when Cao Yang used the 5 copper steel palms, no one was optimistic about Zhuowen. But now, Zhuowen had used his true strength to completely shatter everyone's contempt. Whoosh! After the 5 copper wheels were broken, a figure shot out from the center of the arena like a rocket and instantly appeared in front of Cao Yang. It was Zhuowen, who was ready to attack. The moment the 5 copper wheels were broken, Zhuowen had already made his move. Nirvana of the Great Sun, destruction. Zhuowen shouted coldly. His body was covered in golden light. His right palm mercilessly swept towards Cao Yang at an extremely fast speed. Damn it! You want to defeat me? Zhuowen, you still can't do it. Cao Yang's face was gloomy. His hands suddenly shot out and formed a green yuan qi wall in front of him. Break for me. Zhuowen completely ignored the yuan qi wall. With a slash of his right palm, the yuan qi wall instantly crumbled inch by inch. As soon as the yuan qi wall was broken, Zhuowen's right hand suddenly stretched out and instantly grabbed Cao Yang's neck as if he was holding a chicken. Chapter 737. Bending the law for personal gain. Zhuowen stood quietly in the center of the arena while Cao Yang was lifted off the ground like a little chick. His face was red and his eyes were filled with grievance. Cao Yang, who was ranked 10th on the Azure Emperor leaderboard and was at the advanced stage of the 7-wheel Emperor realm, was a lofty and unreachable existence to many people. Yet now, he was being held by Zhuowen in such a humiliating manner without being able to resist at all. Silence. The surroundings of the entire arena had descended into a deathly silence that could not be hidden. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the arena where the figure standing proudly with Cao Yang in his hand was. The shock in their eyes was just like a tsunami as it spread outwards. The number 1 genius of the Cao family, Cao Yang, is being lifted by Zhuowen just like that. One of the people in the square licked his dry lips. His eyes were already filled with shock. The expressions of the people around him were not much better than this person. Feng Yong, who had been leaning against a stone pillar, suddenly stood up. His eyes narrowed as he stared at Zhuowen. He said in a low voice, "Zhuowen has also reached the peak of the 7-wheel Emperor realm." At this moment, the aura surging out of Zhuowen's body was like a monstrous tsunami. It spread throughout the entire arena, and the huge bluestone arena beneath his feet began to buzz and tremble. It seemed like it would not be able to hold on any longer. This aura was not any weaker than Feng Yong's. Zhuowen had also broken through to the peak of the 7-wheel Emperor realm. How can he be so fast? This kid was only at the initial stage of the 7-wheel Emperor realm 3 months ago. It has only been 3 months, but he has already reached the peak of the 7-wheel Emperor realm. Feng Yong's lips quivered as he finally spat out these words. If Zhuowen was still at the initial stage of the 7-wheel Emperor realm, he would have a 100% chance of winning against Zhuowen. However, Zhuowen had improved too quickly. His cultivation was already on par with his. Furthermore, he had the terrifying spear will. Feng Yong knew that Zhuowen, who possessed spear intent and whose cultivation was not weak, had become extremely difficult to deal with for him. Now, Feng Yong even had a trace of hesitation. The outcome of his fight with Zhuowen had already become unknown. On the high platform, Huangfu Wuji and Grand Lily's pupils shrank at the same time. Zhuowen had suddenly erupted with the strength of a peak 7-wheel emperor. This was beyond their expectations. Cao Yang has lost. Guo Sheng crossed his arms across his chest, glancing behind him at the ugly complexions of Huangfu Wuji and Grand Lily. Murong Zhon's feminine face revealed a rare look of contemplation. He looked at Zhuowen with a strange gaze. Huangfu Wudao still looked straight ahead, his eyes slightly narrowed, as if nothing could move him and make him open his eyes to pay attention. Behind the high platform, there was still a long and narrow table with fine wine placed on it. Within the throne room, there were constantly young and beautiful maids carrying trays of delicious food. In the center, the Azure Emperor sat silently. The other powerful beings also sat in other positions on the table. The lords of the 8 large counties sat on the left side of the table, while the 5 family heads of the Imperial Capital County and the Azure Dragon Branch Palace Master sat on the right side. At a glance, there were nearly 20 people. Almost all of the powerful beings on the table were 4 revered sovereigns. They represented the most respected peak powerhouses in the entire Qing Xian Empire. Cao Yang's defeat was naturally seen by these powerful beings. Sitting on the right side of the table was a short old man. His sharp gaze gradually darkened, and his expression turned ugly. This short old man was the current head of the Cao family, Cao Ji. His strength was extremely terrifying, and he was also a 4 revered sovereign's powerhouse. Cao Ji. It seems that your Cao Yang's cultivation is not up to par. He actually lost to a genius from another county. Sitting beside Cao Ji was a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes. At this moment, this middle-aged man spoke in a mocking tone. Feng Tian, don't be complacent too early. It won't be that easy for your Feng Yong to defeat this Zhuowen. Moreover, I heard that your Feng family's genius is called Feng Xiong. He was killed by this Zhuowen, right? As the head of the Feng family, your family's genius was killed, and the murderer is now at large. As the head of the Feng family, you're nothing much, huh? Cao Ji was not to be outdone. He mocked and ridiculed, causing Feng Tian's expression to gradually turn gloomy. You don't have to worry about this. Our Feng family's people are not so easy to kill. I will definitely not let this kid leave the imperial capital alive. It's just that the time is not right yet, Feng Tian said indifferently. In the arena, Zhuowen lifted Cao Yang with his right hand. His gaze was cold and emotionless. He said indifferently, I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and apologize to me, and I'll let you go. Cao Yang's gaze was filled with shock and anger. He was shocked that Zhuowen was so powerful. He was angry that this kid actually lifted him off the ground in such an impudent manner, and even asked him to kneel down and apologize to him. How could he do such a humiliating thing? Zhuowen, I'm the son of the first wife of the Cao family. What do you dare to do to me? Cao Yang still did not believe that Zhuowen would dare to kill him. After all, he had the colossal Cao family behind him. If Zhuowen killed him, then the final result would only be a fight to the death. Are you still trying to show off your family background? In my opinion, other than being able to use your family background to suppress others, you're a complete and utter piece of trash. I don't care what your Cao family is like. You only have 2 choices now. Either kneel down and apologize, or die. As he spoke, Zhuowen increased the strength of his right hand. Cao Yang could not help but roll his dead fish eyes and cough continuously. His originally arrogant gaze was now replaced by shock and fear. This Zhuowen really planned to kill him, and was not just talking about it. Little bastard. Let Cao Yang go, and you win this round. Cao Ji, who was sitting on the table, naturally saw Cao Yang's strange state clearly. Especially when he saw that Zhuowen not only did not let Cao Yang go, but also increased the strength of his grip. This made Cao Ji both shocked and furious. This Zhuowen did not know how to appreciate kindness. Could it be that he still wanted to kill Cao Yang? Cao family head, aren't you meddling too much? Elders like you can't casually interfere in this arena battle. Holding Cao Yang, Zhuowen tilted his head and looked at Cao Ji, who was on the high platform, and said coldly, "You." Cao Ji's face changed slightly. Where did this Zhuowen get the courage to speak to him like this? Cao Ji's lungs were about to explode from anger. Whoosh! Just as Zhuowen and Cao Ji were talking, a sound of something breaking through the air suddenly swept out from the arena and flew directly towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly, and a trace of an ominous feeling rose in his heart. The sound of something breaking through the air was too fast, and Zhuowen only had time to use the Nirvana Virokana. His body became golden and as hard as iron and stone. Boom! Just as he used the Nirvana Virokana, the sound of something breaking through the air was already whistling in Zhuowen's ears. A strong wind had already enveloped Zhuowen's entire body. Ding! A sound of metal clashing suddenly resounded. The sound of something breaking through the air instantly blasted Zhuowen's chest. The terrifying power almost caused Zhuowen to retreat continuously, and he also let go of Cao Yang in his hand. He could not even take care of himself. Boom! Finally, he stomped on the edge of the arena, and cracks appeared on the ground at the edge of the arena. Zhuowen finally stopped his body. At the same time, Zhuowen finally saw that the thing that had blasted his chest was actually a huge shining halberd. Waves of terrifying pressure flowed out from the halberd. Whoa! A mouthful of blood suddenly spat out, and Zhuowen knelt on one knee on the ground. His gaze was gloomy as he stared at the figure before him, and he said in a low and cold voice, "Feng Yong, you're really despicable and shameless." This shining halberd was precisely shot out by Feng Yong. Feng Yong took advantage of the gap between Zhuowen and Cao Ji to take the initiative to launch a sneak attack. Zhuowen was utterly caught off guard, and Feng Yong actually drilled through empty air. Below the arena, Feng Yong's eyes narrowed, and his expression was slightly surprised. The halberd he shot out was a top-grade Earth-rank spirit treasure, yet it was actually unable to pierce through Zhuowen's body. It could be seen that Zhuowen's body was extraordinarily tough. Swoosh! Feng Yong suddenly flashed onto the arena and said indifferently, "There's no rule in the group stage that only those who fight in the arena must fight. It's completely reasonable for me to make a move. Could it be that you have some objections?" As soon as Feng Yong's words came out, the rest of the people in the square began to discuss spiritedly. They all looked at Feng Yong with a trace of disdain, but no one spoke out. Not to mention the strength of the Feng clan behind Feng Yong's words weren't without reason. There were indeed no rules in the group stage, and everything was decided by the general presiding over the arena. This was similar to how Ji Lanyi, Guo Sheng, and the others chose to fight 1 against 9 to obtain a spot in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. The rules were flexible. However, Zhuowen and Cao Yang's battle hadn't ended, and Zhuowen was in a relaxed state when he was talking to Cao Ji. It was indeed a little unreasonable for Feng Yong to suddenly make a move. He's breaking the rules, right? Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He had finally witnessed Feng Yong's shamelessness. He turned his head and stared at the Silver Dragon General, who was standing at the edge of the arena without saying a word. Feng Yong is right. There's no rule in the group stage that participants below the arena can't make a move. You were careless, so you can't blame others. The Silver Dragon General's voice was indifferent. He was actually openly supporting Feng Yong's nonsense. Zhuowen's face instantly turned gloomy. The Silver Dragon General's words actually supported Feng Yong's sneak attack just now. This made Zhuowen's heart turn cold. The smile on Feng Yong's face deepened. Others might not know, but he knew that the Silver Dragon General was a member of the Feng clan. Therefore, the Silver Dragon General had deliberately come to the 8th arena to preside over the competition so that Feng Yong wouldn't have to worry about entering the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. Crack! On the table, Lu Hantian suddenly crushed the wine cup in his hand. His eyes were incomparably cold as he said indifferently, "Your Majesty, the Silver Dragon General is bending the law for personal gain." Feng Yong even openly launched a sneak attack. "Are you not going to do anything about it?" The Azure Emperor's expression was calm and indifferent from the beginning until the end. He looked at Lu Hantian, who didn't look too good, and said, "There are no rules or restrictions in the arena this time. Everything depends on the performance of the participants. The so-called bending the law for personal gain and the so-called sneak attack are all the same to me. As long as you can stand until the end, you are the winner, no matter what method you use. I only look at the results, not the process. It's useless for you to say all this to me. If you're worried about Zhuowen, you can ask him to forfeit." The Azure Emperor didn't say anything else. He slowly sipped his wine with a smile on his face. Chapter 738. Cao Yang's death. Lu Hantian understood Zhuowen's character very well. It would be better to have him commit suicide than to have him forfeit. Therefore, it was unrealistic to have Zhuowen forfeit. Feng Tian, who was sitting on the right side of the table, revealed a smile. He was originally worried that Zhuowen was too strong and that Feng Yong would have a hard time dealing with him. Now that Zhuowen had been struck by Feng Yong's halberd and suffered heavy injuries, Feng Yong was unharmed. This time, Feng Yong's chances of victory were undoubtedly much higher. In the arena, Feng Yong slowly stood a few dozen meters in front of Zhuowen. He crossed his arms and looked at Zhuowen with ridicule. On the other side of the arena, Cao Yang, who had escaped from Zhuowen's palm, did not leave the arena. Instead, he stared at Zhuowen. With a cough, Zhuowen slowly stood up. He stared at Feng Yong and coldly said, as expected of the number one genius of the Feng family, "You can even use such despicable methods in such a shameless manner. Your skin has already reached the level of shamelessness. Haha. Winner takes all. Winner takes all. Zhuowen, what's the point of saying all this? The right to speak will always be in the hands of the winner. No matter what you say, you will still lose in the end." Feng Yong did not take Zhuowen's words seriously. The ridicule in his eyes became even more intense. Right now, he was already in an invincible position. "Brother Cao, you've already lost. Why are you still on the arena?" Feng Yong's gaze suddenly converged on Cao Yang, who was not far away. Cao Yang's eyelids twitched. He indifferently said, "Brother Feng, this kid humiliated me just now. I can't swallow this grudge. I won't fight with you for the strongest person in this group. You and I will work together to kill this kid. I want to kill this kid with my own hands." Speaking until here, the killing intent in Cao Yang's eyes seemed to have materialized. He stared at Zhuowen with an extremely unfriendly gaze. He must kill this little bastard Zhuowen with his own hands. He, Cao Yang, would never forget the humiliation just now. If he didn't kill Zhuowen with his own hands, he wouldn't be able to rest easy. So that's how it is. Since Brother Cao is so enthusiastic, it would be unsatisfactory if I don't agree. Let's join hands and kill this kid on this stage. Feng Yong raised his eyebrows. He did not expect Cao Yang to suggest joining forces. It seemed that Cao Yang's hatred for Zhuowen was very deep. Although Feng Yong had successfully ambushed Zhuowen with his halberd, causing Zhuowen to be injured, he was after all a centipede that was dead but not paralyzed. Feng Yong was still very wary of Zhuowen. Now that Cao Yang had taken the initiative to join forces, Feng Yong's confidence in dealing with Zhuowen had increased by a few percent. Why wouldn't he, Feng Yong, be happy? Feng Yong and Cao Yang did not purposely lower their voices when they spoke. Hence, everyone in the square heard them clearly. Zhuowen had already been injured by Feng Yong's sneak attack. Now, Feng Yong actually wanted to join forces with Cao Yang to deal with Zhuowen. This battle had already lost its fairness. However, no one stepped forward to say anything. Emperor Qing had said that this battle would use an elimination system. No matter what method one used, as long as one eliminated the other contestants and became the strongest in the group, it would be fine. Moreover, the Silver Dragon General, who was in charge of Arena number 8, did not say anything. Hence, no one would say anything. Silver Dragon General. Cao Yang has already been eliminated by me, right? Don't tell me that he can still stay on the stage and join forces with Feng Yong. Zhuowen's gaze turned even colder as he stared at the Silver Dragon General not far away. Humph. If you think it's unfair, You can forfeit. I didn't force you to stay on the stage. The Silver Dragon General snorted coldly, ignoring Zhuowen's opinion. Zhuowen took a deep breath. Although he knew that the Silver Dragon General was completely biased towards Feng Yong, Zhuowen's heart was still filled with anger when he heard the Silver Dragon General's words. Zhuowen, it's useless even if you forfeit today. You're dead anyway. Do you really think that you can walk out of the imperial capital alive? Cao Yang's eyes were filled with coldness as he spoke coldly. His hatred for Zhuowen was like a huge wave. He wanted nothing more than to tear Zhuowen into pieces right now. Even if he could not kill Zhuowen this time, he would not let Zhuowen go. Cao Yang, I didn't plan to kill you. Unfortunately, your mouth stinks even more than dog fart. A person like you is simply scum. Zhuowen snorted coldly. He silently circulated the origin energy in his body. With a stomp of his foot, he suddenly shot towards Cao Yang at his maximum speed. Brother Feng, let's kill this guy together. Cao Yang's eyes narrowed when he saw Zhuowen rushing towards him. He shouted loudly, but he did not charge forward. Instead, he took a small step back and stood behind Feng Yong. Zhuowen was a peak ultimate 7-wheel emperor. Although he had been injured by Feng Yong's sneak attack earlier, he was still not someone that Cao Yang could face head-on. Therefore, he could only rely on Feng Yong. Naturally, Feng Yong saw Cao Yang's actions. However, he did not care too much about it. After all, Cao Yang was not very strong. He had never thought of relying on Cao Yang. Little bastard, you must die today. A sinister smile appeared on Feng Yong's face. With a stomp of his foot, the halberd that had been stabbed into the ground nearby immediately appeared in his hand. A terrifying aura burst out. His long hair fluttered as he also charged towards Zhuowen. Clang clang clang. The sound of metal clashing suddenly rang out. In the blink of an eye, Zhuowen and Feng Yong had collided. Countless sparks continuously spilled out in all directions from the collision between the two. The collision of the bone spear and the halberd produced a stimulating sound that was like the sound of a great bell. It resounded throughout the entire space. In just an instant, the two of them had exchanged dozens of blows. Every blow was fatal and terrifying. In the eyes of the crowd, the two of them seemed to have turned into two illusory figures that could not be seen clearly at all. The only thing that could be seen clearly was the countless sparks that were produced when the two weapons collided. This proved that the two of them were engaged in an intense battle. Clang clang clang. The two of them fought from the ground to the sky, and then from the sky to the ground. The sound of metal clashing reverberated around the entire arena. It was noisy and ear-piercing. Clang. Sparks flew everywhere as the two of them clashed once again. Then, a figure fell from the sky in a sorry state and smashed into the center of the arena. Rumble. There was a loud sound like muffled thunder. A human-shaped hole was smashed into the center of the arena. A figure struggled out of it in a sorry state. When the crowd looked over, they were shocked to discover that this sorry figure was actually Zhuowen, who had been extremely powerful just a moment ago. At this moment, Zhuowen was in an extremely sorry state. His hair was disheveled, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His qi and blood were boiling. Although Zhuowen's physical body was indeed very strong, Feng Yong's sneak attack earlier had caused Zhuowen to suffer immeasurable injuries. When Zhuowen was fighting with Feng Yong, he had been suppressing his injuries. This also caused Zhuowen to be unable to display his full strength. He had been suppressed by Feng Yong all this time. Earlier, Feng Yong had found a flaw and broken through his defense, mercilessly knocking him down from the sky. Poochie. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Zhuowen's gaze turned extremely gloomy. Now, he only felt the qi and blood in his body boiling. His entire body was exhausted, and the suppressed injuries were showing signs of worsening. Whoosh! Not long after Zhuowen landed on the ground, the sound of something breaking through the air came from the other side of the arena. When Cao Yang, who was originally watching, saw Zhuowen's sorry state, he did not hesitate to rush over to Zhuowen. Zhuowen, I, Cao Yang, am not someone you can afford to offend. Since you have offended me, then you will not be able to escape this calamity. Now, die. Cao Yang instantly flew above Zhuowen. A cold light flashed out from his sleeve. He actually took out a long sword with a cold light and pierced towards Zhuowen's forehead. Looking at such a shameless Cao Yang, the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes became even denser. This Cao Yang's shamelessness was something Zhuowen had never seen before in his life. Boom! Zhuowen waved his right hand. The green coffin behind him buzzed and flew out, blocking in front of him. Ding! Cao Yang's long sword touched the surface of the green coffin, and then his entire body stopped. This green coffin is so hard. Cao Yang's pupils constricted, and he could not help but whisper. Whoosh! A bone spear suddenly shot out from behind the green coffin, catching Cao Yang off guard. Under Cao Yang's astonished gaze, it instantly pierced through his abdomen, causing a large amount of blood to spurt out. You actually dare to kill me? Cao Yang's gaze stared at the bone spear in his abdomen, and he still muttered to himself in disbelief. A despicable and shameless person like you deserves to die. You deserve to die. Zhuowen's voice was gloomy and cold like the winter moon, and every word resounded in Cao Yang's ears. Chapter 739. Defeat. Feng Yongcaoji's face turned even uglier. One could imagine how Caoji felt after seeing Cao Yang die in front of him. Lu Hantian, don't force me to make a move, Caoji said sinisterly. Oh, you want to make a move? Come, come, come. I will accompany you to the end. Lu Hantian rolled up his sleeves and sneered. A terrifying aura poured out of Lu Hantian's body, and cracks appeared in the space around the table. Caoji's eyes narrowed when he felt Lu Hantian's terrifying aura. He was shocked and said, Heavenly Venerate. Just the aura that flowed out was enough to cause the surrounding space to crack. This was not something an ordinary fourth Venerate could do. Caoji's face turned ugly. Lu Hantian's strength was beyond his expectations. Although he was the head of the Cao family and was also a fourth Venerate, he had only reached the third level of the fourth Venerate, the Golden Venerate. He was still one step away from the Heavenly Venerate. Come, come, come. I am right here. Let's play. Lu Hantian's current appearance was no different from a hoodlum. He rolled up his sleeves and waved at Caoji provocatively. This scene made the other Almighties roll their eyes. This Lu Hantian was too weird. How could a Heavenly Venerate not have the demeanor of a Heavenly Venerate? All right. The two of you can stop messing around. Come back. The Qing Emperor finally spoke from the center of the table. Although his voice was soft, it was like thunder in everyone's ears. It was shocking and ear-piercing, causing everyone's minds to buzz. As soon as the Cyan Emperor spoke, Lu Hantian and Caoji no longer dared to make a fuss and returned to their respective seats. Caoji's gaze was extremely cold as he stared at Zhuowen's figure in the arena. His face was ferocious. Cao Yang was his great-grandson and the most talented person among the many disciples of the Cao family. If Cao Yang did not die, he would definitely reach the fourth Venerate realm and might even surpass his senior. But now, Cao Yang had been killed by Zhuowen. All of Caoji's hopes were dashed. He hated Zhuowen to the core and wished he could cut Zhuowen into pieces. From the moment Cao Yang took the initiative to attack Zhuowen to Zhuowen's death, it was in the blink of an eye. Even Feng Yong, who was floating in the air, did not expect that Zhuowen, you killed Cao Yang? Feng Yong still couldn't believe it and couldn't help but ask. I Feng Yong. Feng Yong. Feng Yong. Feng. Zhuowen's eyes were bloodshot as he stomped his feet. The side effect of the blood-sucking great skill had already appeared. Cao Yang's resentment after his death entered Zhuowen's body and turned into an endless baleful aura. Waves of blood-red baleful aura gushed out from the countless pores on Zhuowen's body. They were like blood-red bubbles that surrounded Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen was like a wild beast. What a terrifying baleful aura! At the edge of the arena, the Silver Dragon General narrowed his eyes as a trace of astonishment appeared on his face. The baleful aura gushing out from Zhuowen's body was even more terrifying than that of a border general like him. The Silver Dragon General could not help but feel that it was inconceivable. Boom! Zhuowen suddenly slapped the green coffin. The green coffin, which was about 10 feet in size, suddenly crashed to the ground and blocked in front of Zhuowen. Creak. In an instant, Zhuowen opened the demon-suppressing green coffin by a third. A terrifying pressure poured out. Under this pressure, countless rocks in the arena floated up as if weightless. Feng Yong, get down here and accept your death. Feng Yong, get down here and accept your death. Zhuowen shouted loudly. His voice was like thunder that exploded in the air. Countless echoes resounded in the air above the arena, causing many people in the surroundings to feel a sense of pride and passion as if they were facing death unflinchingly. Feng Yong narrowed his eyes as he stared at Zhuowen below. He was still somewhat bewildered. The more he looked at Zhuowen, the stranger he felt. Clearly, this kid was struck to the ground by him. He should be more injured than before. Why did his complexion look better than before? How could Feng Yong know that Zhuowen possessed the blood-sucking great skill that the blood demon had imparted to him? It could instantly absorb the blood essence of living beings to quickly replenish his body and speed up his recovery. Now that Zhuowen's injuries were much better than before, and the injuries in his body had been completely suppressed, Zhuowen naturally wanted to take revenge on Feng Yong. Empty bravado. Feng Yong coldly snorted. He was certain that Zhuowen was empty bravado. With a stomp of his foot, his entire body descended like a meteor. His speed soared to the extreme. Flood Dragon Halberd. With a low shout, Feng Yong instantly arrived above Zhuowen. With a shake of his right hand, ink-black energy surged out of the halberd. It actually condensed into a flood dragon several hundred feet long behind Feng Yong. Awoo! As Feng Yong's halberd descended, the massive flood dragon instantly enveloped Zhuowen's tiny figure. Advance and the proud dragon will regret. Retreat and the thistle will grow. Proud dragon style, break for me. With continuous footsteps, Zhuowen grasped the dragon-scale tyrant bone spear with both hands. The spear tilted from top to bottom. His right foot moved forward, and the tip of his foot pushed forward. An incomparably powerful aura burst forth. At this moment, it was as if Zhuowen and the dragon-scale tyrant bone spear had become one. A muffled sound like thunder resounded from the void behind Zhuowen. A terrifying dragon head descended from the void and blocked in front of Zhuowen. Rumble. The dragon head and the flood dragon instantly tore at each other. The terrifying power caused the surrounding space to tremble faintly. There was actually the sound of glass shattering. Awoo. Unfortunately, the flood dragon's power was ultimately much stronger than the dragon head. It actually shattered the dragon head and continued to dive towards Zhuowen with irresistible force. A cold light arrives first, then the spear strikes like a dragon. Subduing dragon style, strike for me. Zhuowen's spear momentum did not change. He suddenly swung the bone spear and immediately displayed the second move of the dragon-scale tyrant bone spear, the subduing dragon style. Suddenly, a monstrous dragon roar resounded. A huge coiling dragon that was hundreds of meters long coiled around Zhuowen's body, forming an impenetrable defense. In the next second, the flood dragon arrived as expected. The coiling dragon and the flood dragon collided. The dragon's roar and the flood dragon's roar rang out continuously. In the end, the two roars shattered in a terrifying explosion. Ding! When the coiling dragon and the flood dragon were destroyed, Feng Yong instantly arrived. He swung the halberd in his hand, causing countless hurricanes to fly towards Zhuowen's face. Zhuowen laughed coldly. He held the bone spear horizontally and directly blocked the halberd's attack. Your injuries. Feeling the powerful force transmitted from the bone spear, Feng Yong frowned slightly. He actually felt that Zhuowen's injuries were much better than before. The smile on Zhuowen's face widened. He held the bone spear in his right hand and once again slapped the green coffin with his left hand. Creak. The crack on the green coffin lid widened by a little. Zhuowen had opened half of it, and an even more frightening pressure than before poured out in torrents. A pair of blood-red eyes suddenly appeared from the green coffin and a strange aura slowly spread out. Feng Yong, who was in front of Zhuowen, also noticed the blood-red eyes that suddenly appeared from the green coffin. When he looked over, his body trembled and he was stunned on the spot. His eyes revealed a trace of confusion. On the high platform, When Grand Lily saw the pair of blood-red eyes in the green coffin, her beautiful eyes revealed a trace of lingering fear. Back when she was chasing after Zhuowen, she had forced Zhuowen to use these blood-red eyes. This pair of blood-red eyes was very dangerous. Even Granny Lily had almost fallen into the endless illusion of the blood-red eyes. If it wasn't for her firm will and powerful strength, she might have been killed by Zhuowen instead. The instant Feng Yong fell into the blood-red eyes, Zhuowen's spear changed direction and instantly pierced towards Feng Yong's forehead. If this attack hit, Feng Yong would definitely die. The instant the spear tip was about to reach Feng Yong's forehead, Feng Yong's eyes regained clarity and he saw the spear tip that was close at hand. Feng Yong roared angrily. He stomped his feet and retreated continuously. Unfortunately, the bone spear was like a maggot that followed closely behind Feng Yong. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. A ruthless light flashed in Feng Yong's eyes. He made a prompt decision and directly blocked in front of his forehead with his left hand. Poochie. A broken arm flew out and fresh blood splattered. Feng Yong's left arm was instantly broken. With his left arm delaying time, Feng Yong's body moved and he immediately dodged Zhuowen's fatal attack. Your reaction is quite fast. Unfortunately, you won't be able to take the next move. Feng Yong had lost an arm and his strength was greatly reduced. Now, he was no longer a match for Zhuowen. Therefore, Zhuowen was confident that this move could definitely take Feng Yong's life. Buzz. The invisible spear intent spread out. Zhuowen's body was like a spear and instantly shot out, rushing towards Feng Yong who was retreating continuously. At this moment, Feng Yong who was retreating had a sinister expression. The pain of losing an arm was not so easy to endure. Even though Feng Yong was strong, he still grimaced in pain. Whoosh! Zhuowen rushed over again. The bone spear suddenly shot out and pressed forward. This caused Feng Yong's expression to change greatly. He struck out with the halberd in his right hand, wanting to completely block Zhuowen's attack. Bang! Unfortunately, under the support of the bone spear with spear intent and Feng Yong's strength being greatly reduced due to losing an arm, Feng Yong's attack was extremely weak and the halberd was directly shattered. Poochie. The bone spear shot out again and Feng Yong's right arm was cut off at the shoulder. Fresh blood spurted out like a fountain. Ah! Zhuowen, you little bastard. With both arms broken, Feng Yong's face was ashen. This was equivalent to being a cripple. No matter how high his cultivation was, without both arms, he could no longer do anything on the road of martial arts. Whoosh! After cutting off Feng Yong's right arm, Zhuowen's bone spear once again shot out towards Feng Yong's forehead. He planned to directly kill Feng Yong with this attack. I admit defeat. I forfeit. Zhuowen, stop it right now. Looking at the bone spear that shot out once again, Feng Yong's face, which was originally ashen, was filled with fear. Admit defeat. Forfeit. It's too late now. It's better for you to die. At the moment when Feng Yong shamelessly launched a sneak attack on him, Zhuowen had already sentenced Feng Yong to death. This Feng Yong must be killed by Zhuowen. Stop. Feng Yong has already admitted defeat and you still dare to kill him. Today, this general will cripple you, this bastard who despises the law. The moment Zhuowen made his move, a loud shout suddenly sounded from the edge of the arena. Chapter 740. The strongest in the group. Zhuowen's pupils shrank when he sensed the terrifying aura behind him. His eyes were filled with coldness. The Silver Dragon General had actually attacked him in public. This was no longer a matter of favoritism. Instead, the Silver Dragon General wanted to kill him from the very beginning. With a cold snort, Zhuowen's hand seals changed. 3 pairs of lightning wings sprouted from his back, and his speed soared to the limit. He arrived in front of Feng Yong in a flash. Zhuowen grabbed Feng Yong's collar with his right hand. With a stomp of his foot, he turned into a lightning shadow and retreated. Rumble. The moment he retreated, the place where Zhuowen had been suddenly exploded, forming a huge crater that was dozens of feet wide. It was a terrifying sight. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with coldness as he looked at the huge crater. The Silver Dragon General had really planned to be ruthless. Just this attack alone had used the full strength of a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm 9th wheel. If Feng Yong had taken it head-on, he would have probably died. Zhuowen, our Feng clan is not someone you can offend. Let me go immediately. Feng Yong only felt sullen. It was too humiliating to be held in Zhuowen's hand. However, he did not dare to act rashly. With his arms broken, he was no match for Zhuowen. If Zhuowen wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. Then did you think about letting me go when you attacked me? Zhuowen snorted coldly. Feng Yong's expression froze, but he still retorted, Zhuowen, you better think carefully. If you kill me, the Feng clan will not let you go. I have already crippled you. What's the difference between killing you and crippling you? Do you think that your Feng clan will let me go if I let you go? Zhuowen retorted with a sneer. Then what do you want? Feng Yong was both shocked and furious. He said with some fear. Zhuowen had even dared to kill Cao Yang. Feng Yong knew that Zhuowen was completely capable of killing him. At this moment, there was a hint of submission in his voice. Zhuowen no longer paid any attention to Feng Yong, who was still clamoring. His gaze focused on the Silver Dragon General, who was slowly walking out of the deep pit with a grave expression. Zhuowen, you've got some guts. Feng Yong had already admitted defeat, yet you still attacked. A person like you who looks down on the law and ignores the rules is not qualified to participate in this ranking tournament. The Silver Dragon General also noticed that Feng Yong's life was in Zhuowen's hands. His eyes hardened as he spoke in a cold voice. Defying the law. Ignoring the rules. The smile on Zhuowen's face grew even wider. This Silver Dragon General was really distorting the truth and spouting nonsense. At the beginning, Feng Yong had taken advantage of his unpreparedness to launch a sneak attack on him, and even joined forces with Cao Yang to fight him. Could it be that this wasn't disregarding the rules? In the beginning, Feng Yong had not cared. Now that Zhuowen had defeated Feng Yong, he had come out to meddle in other people's business. The Silver Dragon General's intention to side with Zhuowen was too obvious. That's right. I'm presiding over the number 8 arena, so you have to listen to me. You ignored the rules and even used cruel methods. A person like you isn't qualified to be the strongest person in the number 8 arena group, the Silver Dragon General said righteously. I'm not qualified. Could it be that you think that this trash is qualified? As he spoke, Zhuowen raised his right hand and pulled Feng Yong, who had a slightly narrowed expression, to the front as he spoke in a cold voice. Zhuowen, you little bastard, why aren't you quickly releasing Feng Yong? Suddenly, a shocked and furious voice sounded out from the table. Feng Tian stood up with a bang, his gaze staring fixedly at Zhuowen. He also did not expect that Feng Yong would actually lose miserably in the end. Moreover, both of his arms were even chopped off by Zhuowen. Needless to say, Feng Yong would become a complete cripple in the future. The person with the strongest talent in their Feng family actually had both of his arms crippled in front of everyone's eyes. This was already indirectly slapping their Feng family's face. How could Feng Tian not be furious? Moreover, Feng Yong was Feng Tian's son. Blood was thicker than water. Now that Feng Yong was in such a miserable state, how could Feng Tian not be furious? Zhuowen glanced indifferently at Feng Tian and said in a clear voice, You want me to release Feng Yong? Feng Tian's eyes were crimson red as he said coldly, That's right. Little bastard, you better release Feng Yong. Otherwise, your friends, family, and everyone related to you will all die in the future. As long as you release Feng Yong, I promise to leave you with a complete corpse. I won't let you die too miserably. As soon as Feng Tian said this, Zhuowen's pupils constricted. Feng Tian's meaning was very simple and also very cruel. In other words, whether Zhuowen released Feng Yong or not, he, Zhuowen, would die. If he released Feng Yong, his friends and family would not be implicated. If he did not release Feng Yong, he and all of his friends and family would die. Whether I release Feng Yong or not, I will die. Is there something wrong with your head? Since I'm going to die, then why should I release Feng Yong? Zhuowen retorted sarcastically. This Feng Tian was so domineering. Whether he, Zhuowen, released Feng Tian or not, he, Zhuowen, would die. This was forcing him to kill Feng Yong. At this moment, Feng Yong also realized that Feng Tian's words were somewhat inappropriate. He hurriedly struggled and said, "Father, save me, save me. Zhuowen, why aren't you letting him go? Don't force me to make a move." Looking at Feng Yong's appearance, Feng Tian's heart faintly ached, and he said coldly to Zhuowen, "Ha ha. You also said that whether I release him or not, I, Zhuowen, will die. Since I, Zhuowen, am going to die, why should I let Feng Yong go?" Zhuowen sneered. As soon as these words were spoken, Feng Tian's face froze. He also realized that his words earlier were somewhat inappropriate. However, as the patriarch of the Feng family, Feng Tian naturally couldn't swallow his pride and change his words. Instead, he snorted coldly and said, "Zhuowen, you have to think clearly. Could it be that you want your friends and family to be buried with you even if you die? So long as you release Feng Yong, I won't make a move against your friends and family. Old bastard. Before you ask me to release him, can you use your brain? With your current intelligence, it's already no different from a pig." Zhuowen shook his head, and his gaze landed on Feng Yong as he said indifferently, "Feng Yong, remember, the person who killed you wasn't of my own volition. It was your father, Feng Tian, who forced me to kill you. Since I'm going to die regardless of whether I release you or not, so in my opinion, it's better to let you be buried with me." As he spoke up to hear, the mocking smile on the corners of Zhuowen's mouth became even denser. On the other hand, Feng Yong's face was filled with terror. He knew that Zhuowen had made up his mind to kill him. "Don't kill me, I." Before Feng Yong could finish his words, Zhuowen exerted force with his right hand. Instantly, a crisp cracking sound could be heard. Following this, Feng Yong's head tilted to the side, and he actually stopped breathing. Bang! Zhuowen tossed his right hand, and Feng Yong's corpse, which had died with his eyes open, flew out in a parabola shape before heavily smashing into the ground. Silence. The entire plaza was deathly silent. Only the sound of Feng Yong's corpse hitting the ground echoed endlessly throughout the plaza. Dead. The number one genius of the Feng family, Feng Yong, had died just like that. When the gazes of everyone in the plaza gathered on Zhuowen's figure, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. This Zhuowen was too ruthless. Not only did he kill the number one genius of the Cao family, Cao Yang, but he even killed Feng Yong. This could no longer be described as daring and reckless. Not only were the people in the plaza stunned, but even Feng Tian was stunned. He never thought that Zhuowen would actually dare to kill Feng Yong. On the high platform, Huangfu Wuji, Granny Baihe, and the others were also stunned. Zhuowen's final choice and method had also exceeded their expectations. On the martial stage, the Silver Dragon General was also stunned. He never thought that Zhuowen would actually kill Feng Yong, and without the slightest hesitation at all. "You actually dare to kill Feng Yong in front of this general? You are courting death." The Silver Dragon General angrily roared, and an endless infernal aura erupted from his body. The Silver Dragon General turned into a bloody shadow that flew towards Zhuowen at an extremely fast speed. Looking at the Silver Dragon General rushing towards him, Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a cold light. He coldly said, "For a dead man, is it really worth it for you to attack me? Now that Feng Yong is dead, I am officially ranked in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor proclamation. Do you think that if you kill me, His Majesty the Azure Emperor will spare you?" As soon as these words came out, the originally aggressive Silver Dragon General suddenly stopped. He stood 5 meters away from Zhuowen, a hesitant look on his face. Zhuowen's words weren't without reason. Feng Yong had already been thoroughly killed by him. Without a doubt, the strongest powerhouse on the 8th martial stage was Zhuowen. Although he, the Silver Dragon General, was the one presiding over this martial stage, if he were to attack a genius that stood out from the group for no reason, what would the Azure Emperor think? If Feng Yong hadn't died, then he might have been able to obtain Feng Tian's praise. But now that Feng Yong had died in front of him, he feared that he would have to bear Feng Tian's wrath. Since this was the case, the Silver Dragon General had no reason to attack Zhuowen. This boy's methods are ruthless and decisive, and his mind is clear and sharp. His future achievements will be limitless. As he thought of this, The Silver Dragon General slowly withdrew his murderous aura. He knew very well that not only was Zhuowen strong and talented, but he was also very smart. This boy's future was limitless. If he, the Silver Dragon General, couldn't kill Zhuowen today, then he would have to bear Zhuowen's revenge in the future. However, even if he killed Zhuowen, he was afraid that he wouldn't have a good ending. Therefore, the best choice for him now was to be a bystander and not meddle in other people's business. Can you announce the result of the 8th martial stage now? Zhuowen asked faintly. The Silver Dragon General's eyes flickered as he announced loudly, 8th martial stage, Zhuowen wins. As he said that, the Silver Dragon General suddenly looked at Liu Long below the stage. He said indifferently, "It's just you and Zhuowen now. The two of you will fight to determine the strongest person in the group." Liu Long's face stiffened, and he hurriedly shook his head and forfeited. What a joke. Zhuowen had even killed Cao Yang and Feng Yong. He had not even reached the limits of the Seven-Wheel King realm, so he would be sending himself to death if he went up. As a result, Liu Long admitted defeat very straightforwardly. The Silver Dragon General was not too surprised by Liu Long's admission of defeat. After witnessing Zhuowen's terrifying strength and ruthless methods, no one would be interested in fighting him at all. Since that's the case, the winner of the 8th martial stage is Zhuowen, the Silver Dragon General announced loudly. At the same time, the countless people in the surroundings were in an uproar. They stared at Zhuowen in a daze as excitement filled their faces. Chapter 741. On the floating platform creek, Feng Tian clenched his fists tightly as he stared fixedly at Zhuowen, who was on the arena below. His expression was savage, and he wished for nothing more than to tear Zhuowen into pieces. However, he knew that he couldn't make a move now because Lu Hantian's cold and indifferent gaze was staring fixedly at him from the other side of the table. Feng Tian knew that if he made a move, Lu Hantian would definitely come out to stop him. His strength was on par with Cao Ji, so he was definitely not a match for Lu Hantian. Zhuowen. Feng Tian fiercely muttered Zhuowen's name as he took a deep breath and sat back down on the table while his gaze flickered. Zhuowen smoothly emerged from the 8th arena and walked towards the high platform under the lead of a soldier. He arrived at the place where Huangfu Wudao and the other 4 geniuses were. Zhuowen, I never imagined that your strength would be so formidable. Even Cao Yang and Feng Yong were defeated by you. Guosheng laughed loudly as he arrived near the 5 geniuses. He arrived before Zhuowen and sized up Zhuowen with dense shock in the depths of his eyes. He still remembered that Zhuowen was utterly powerless against him when they were in Muqin County. Now, not only had Zhuowen's cultivation caught up to his, even Cao Yang and Feng Yong, 2 geniuses in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings, had been defeated. The speed of Zhuowen's improvement had truly exceeded Guosheng's expectations. Originally, Guosheng thought that his improvement was already fast enough. However, he paled in comparison to Zhuowen. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled into a smile as he looked at Guosheng and said, "Brother Guo is too modest. Your strength is probably stronger than mine. At the very least, I'm unable to see through you now." Zhuowen was speaking the truth. He really couldn't see through Guosheng. There was only one explanation for this situation, and that was that Guosheng's cultivation was above Zhuowen's. 3 months ago, Guosheng had already reached the peak of the ultimate 7-wheel emperor stage and could easily defeat Feng Yong. Now that 3 months had passed, with Guosheng's talent, Zhuowen didn't believe that Guosheng hadn't made any breakthroughs. In other words, Guosheng was very likely an ultimate 8-wheel emperor stage expert. Humph. Little bastard, you were lucky to meet Cao Yang and Feng Yong in the group stage. If you had met me, I would have made you suffer an incomparably miserable end. An ear-piercing voice sounded out, causing Zhuowen's eyes to turn cold. He turned to look at the lofty Huangfu Wuji and lightly said, "His Highness the Second Prince is truly unparalleled in this world. Someone as insignificant as me can be killed with a flip of his hand." However, in the Peach Blossom origin diagram, His Highness the Second Prince was at the peak of the ultimate 7-wheel emperor stage and I was only at the peak of the ultimate 6-wheel emperor stage. There was a difference of an entire realm between us. At that time, His Highness the Second Prince threatened to kill me, but now, I seem to be standing here perfectly fine. As he spoke to hear, Zhuoan no longer spoke. Instead, he stared at Huangfu Wuji with a mocking gaze. Zhuoan's words seemed to be flattering Huangfu Wuji, but in reality, he was saying that Huangfu Wuji was clearly stronger than Zhuoan, yet he still couldn't kill Zhuoan. He was mocking Huangfu Wuji for being incompetent. You have a sharp tongue and a glib tongue. Zhuoan, you're only good at talking now. Once we truly fight, I'm afraid you'll truly regret it. Huangfu Wuji's eyes narrowed. Before he could open his mouth to refute, Grand Lily suddenly opened her mouth. Her cold voice was particularly ear-piercing to Zhuoan's ears. You're just a slut that I'm about to divorce, yet you dare to spout such nonsense in front of me. I'll give you one word. Fuck off. Zhuoan didn't even look at Grand Lily as he coldly retorted. Towards Grand Lily, Zhuoan could be considered to have a deep-seated hatred. This woman had the heart of a snake and scorpion. Back in the peach blossom origin diagram, she had wanted to kill him. How could Zhuoan possibly have a good attitude towards this woman? What did you say? Grand Lily was so angry that her body trembled. A terrifying aura gushed out from her body, pressuring Zhuoan. Haha. Everyone, let's not harm each other. Now that we've all successfully entered the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list, we can be considered brothers and sisters. Let's not fight and kill, okay? At the instant that Grand Lily released her terrifying aura, an even more overbearing aura swept out, directly suppressing Grand Lily's aura. Soon after, a rather gentle voice sounded out. Grand Lily's beautiful face slightly changed. She turned her head and saw a trace of a gentle smile on Murongzhon's face. Grand Lily's eyes revealed a trace of dread. She coldly snorted and fiercely glared at Zhuoan before slowly restraining her aura. It wasn't only because of Murongzhon, but also because this was the Golden Imperial Palace. Private fights were not allowed. Zhuoan glanced at the beaming Murongzhon in astonishment. He nodded his head and shifted his attention to the remaining 4 arenas below. Time passed by minute by minute. The strongest of the 4 arenas had already been filtered out. Arena number 2 was Qing Yang, arena number 5 was Qing Ming, arena number 7 was Zhu Bai, and arena number 9 was the Lightless Monk. Qing Yang, Qing Ming, and Zhu Bai were originally in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list. Hence, Zhuoan wasn't surprised that they were the strongest of their arenas. What really surprised Zhuoan was the Lightless Monk in arena number 9. The final battle in arena number 9 was naturally between LV Atao and the Lightless Monk. LV Atao was ranked 15th on the Azure Emperor list, while the Lightless Monk was ranked 14th. Their rankings were close. Originally, everyone thought that this battle would be a stalemate. However, in the end, LV Atao was defeated by the Lightless Monk in one move and was directly eliminated from the arena. Although LV Atao's strength was much weaker than Zhuoan's, he had been extremely diligent in his cultivation for the past 3 months. His cultivation had also reached the peak of the ultimate 6-wheel Emperor realm. Arena number 9 originally didn't have any geniuses in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list, so LV Atao's chances of standing out were very high. However, the Lightless Monk suddenly appeared halfway and displayed his terrifying strength, directly eliminating LV Atao. This Lightless Monk's strength is at least at the ultimate 7-wheel Emperor realm. Looking at the Lightless Monk behind Qing Yang, Qing Ming, and Zhu Bai, Zhuoan's eyes narrowed. The Lightless Monk's strength had surprised him. At this point, the results of all 10 arenas had been announced. This also meant that the new top 10 of the Azure Emperor list had appeared in front of everyone. On the table, the Azure Emperor slowly stood up with a gentle smile on his face. He said in a clear voice, "Everyone has seen it. The top 10 of the Azure Emperor list have been selected. They are Huangfu Wudao, Murongzhon, Gran Baihe, Qing Yang, Qing Ming, Zhu Bai, Huangfu Wuji, Guosheng, Zhuoan, and the Lightless Monk. First, this emperor would like to congratulate the 10 of you." When the Azure Emperor said this, everyone below the arena revealed excited expressions. The top 10 of the Azure Emperor list hadn't changed much. The only change was that Cao Yang, who was ranked 10th, and Feng Yong, who was ranked 8th, had been eliminated. Zhuowen and the lightless monk had been newly promoted. Of course, in this arena battle, the one who had stunned everyone the most was still Zhuowen on the 8th arena. After all, Cao Yang and Feng Yong had both been defeated by Zhuowen. From this, it could be seen that Zhuowen's strength had far exceeded everyone's expectations. Since the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list have been selected, the next step will be the top 5. Everyone should be aware of the importance of the top 5 of the Azure Emperor list. As the Azure Emperor spoke to hear, he deliberately paused. As for the 10 geniuses in front of the high platform, their eyes shined with a strange light. Even Huangfu Wudao's eyelids couldn't help but twitch, revealing the restlessness in his heart. This time, the top 5 of the Azure Emperor list would have the qualifications to participate in the entrance examination of the Excellent Divine Institute. This was a great opportunity. To the Azure Xian Empire, the Excellent Divine Institute was a colossal existence. Throughout the entire Eastern lands, the Excellent Divine Institute was an illustrious existence. Even the Blue Dragon Hall couldn't ignore its existence. If they could enter such a colossal power, it would undoubtedly be like reaching the heavens in a single bound. Just the huge amount of resources and teachers in the Excellent Divine Institute was enough to allow a cultivator to advance by leaps and bounds in a short period of time. Even the arrogant first prince, Huangfu Wudao, had a blind pursuit of the Excellent Divine Institute. He also desired to enter the Excellent Divine Institute. The Excellent Divine Institute. Among the 10, Zhuowen's eyes shone with a dazzling light. He couldn't help but feel excited. The Excellent Divine Institute was the place of his dreams that he had been looking forward to for a long time. In the Excellent Divine Institute, not only did it have the complete Ice-Fire sacred symbol, but it also had Mu Chunxue, whom he yearned for day and night. He, Zhuowen, had to enter the Excellent Divine Institute no matter what. This emperor will not speak any more nonsense. The battle for the top 5 will begin now. As long as you enter the top 5, you will have the qualifications to participate in the entrance examination of the Excellent Divine Institute. Speaking to hear, the Azure Emperor waved his sleeves. Suddenly, countless green lights descended from the sky and landed in the middle of the arena. Rumble. As the green lights descended, the 10 arenas in the middle of the arena emitted a strange green light. Following which, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, they transformed into a gigantic green arena that was a few hundred feet tall. This huge cyan fighting ring floated quietly in the air above the square, giving people a sense of awe as they looked up at it from afar. The 10 geniuses on the high platform all focused their gazes on the gigantic arena floating in the air with different expressions on their faces. This is the floating arena, the stage for the 10 of you. The rules are simple. 2-on-2 battles, survival of the fittest. However, in the battle for the top 5, you cannot kill. If anyone wants to kill, then don't blame this emperor for being impolite. Speaking to hear, the Azure Emperor's tone became much more serious. The top 10 geniuses of the Azure Mystic Empire had already been chosen. They represented the highest standards of the Azure Mystic Empire. If they were to die, it would undoubtedly be a huge loss. Zhuowen and the rest naturally knew what the Azure Emperor was thinking. They all nodded their heads without any objections. Now, draw lots to choose your opponent. Finishing his words, the Azure Emperor tossed his right hand and 10 green bamboo sticks floated in the air. I'll go first. Huangfu Wudao stretched out his right hand, and a suction force swept out from his palm. Suddenly, the 10 bamboo sticks in the air were sucked into his palm. With Huangfu Wudao taking the lead, the other 9 geniuses also drew their bamboo sticks. Zhuowen was no exception. Chapter 742. Zhu Bai vs Qing Ming. Apart from Zhuowen, the other 9 geniuses all looked at the bamboo lots in their hands. Since all 10 of you have obtained the bamboo lots, the one with the A lots, please step forward, Emperor Qing said as he looked at the 10 geniuses. Immediately, 2 figures stepped forward. They were the number 1 genius of the Zhu clan, Zhu Bai, and one of the 2 legendary heroes of the Azure Dragon Branch Hall, Qing Ming. Zhu Bai and Qing Ming looked at each other before a terrifying elite aura erupted from both of them. A terrifying battle intent swept out from between the two of them. "The two of you can go first," Emperor Qing said indifferently. Zhu Bai and Qing Ming nodded their heads. With a stomp of their feet, they leaped onto the green-colored stage that was floating in the air. The two of them faced each other from a distance on each side of the stage. Everyone in the plaza was excited when they saw Zhu Bai and Qing Ming on the arena. They never thought that Zhu Bai and Qing Ming would actually fight each other. Zhu Bai and Qing Ming were ranked third on the imperial ranking board, while Qing Ming was ranked fourth. Their rankings were extremely close. Moreover, Zhu Bai and Qing Ming had fought each other in the last ranking battle. Last time, Qing Ming and Zhu Bai's battle was extremely intense. Unfortunately, Qing Ming lost to Zhu Bai by a single move. They wondered if Qing Ming would be able to regain his glory and avenge his previous defeat. "The two of us are really fated to meet again." Qing Ming, who was wearing green clothes and had a faintly discernible scholarly smile on his face, quietly stood in front of Zhu Bai and spoke somewhat helplessly. Zhu Bai's expression was cold as he looked at Qing Ming and said, "Qing Ming, your cultivation technique attribute is naturally countered by me, and your cultivation cannot surpass mine. You will definitely lose this battle." Qing Ming's eyes narrowed when he heard this. He smiled faintly and said, "Zhu Bai, you're too confident. You may not necessarily lose." As he spoke, Qing Ming took a step forward and a terrifying aura suddenly burst out. Countless streams of green energy coiled around Qing Ming like countless green snakes. It looked extremely strange. What terrifying strength! Qing Ming has actually reached the mid-stage of the ultimate emperor realm. His strength is so strong. Zhuo Wen, who was below the arena, narrowed his eyes when he sensed Qing Ming's powerful aura. He was shocked. Qing Ming was indeed worthy of being ranked fourth on the previous Azure Emperor rankings. His cultivation was too terrifying. In terms of cultivation, Zhuowen was not as good as Qing Ming. However, if Zhuowen revealed his level 5 complete mental strength, Zhuowen was confident that he could fight against Qing Ming. Zhu Bai shook his head. The coldness at the corners of his mouth spread even further as he said indifferently, "Mid-ultimate emperor stage? You've improved quite quickly, but unfortunately, my improvement isn't any worse than yours." Zhu Bai also took a step forward as he spoke. A similarly frightening aura swept out. Countless golden force spread out in a densely packed manner like small golden snakes. His aura was like a rainbow and was actually not inferior to Qing Ming's. It was yet another ultimate 8-wheel emperor realm cultivator. The people around the arena all sucked in a breath of cold air. Zhu Bai and Qing Ming were so powerful. They were both ultimate 8-wheel emperors. Zhu Bai and Qing Ming were not very old. They were not more than 30 years old. To be able to reach the ultimate 8-wheel emperor realm at such an age, their talent was extremely terrifying even in the entire Qing Xian Empire. This was also the reason why everyone in the square was so shocked when the two of them unleashed their true auras. Boom! In an instant, Zhu Bai and Qing Ming shot out explosively and collided with each other. Countless green and gold-colored force splashed across the entire arena like raindrops that filled the sky. It was a dazzling and colorful sight. Boom! Boom! In an instant, the two of them exchanged dozens of blows in the air. Force flew everywhere and the space collapsed. The power displayed in each of their moves caused the people below to tremble. It was too terrifying. A battle between ultimate 8-wheel emperors was actually so terrifying. "Qing Ming, let's end this in one move. What's the point of fighting like this?" A loud shout rang out from the battle on the arena. Then, the golden and green figures immediately separated. The one who had spoken was Zhu Bai. "I was thinking the same thing." Qing Ming panted slightly. His eyes were cold as he said coldly. In the air, Zhu Bai's expression was extremely grave. He took a step forward and the aura within his body increased by several times. When he took another step, it increased by dozens of times. When he took a third step, it increased by several hundred times. In an instant, endless tearing winds filled Zhu Bai's body. The surrounding space actually shattered like glass shards. They rustled as they fell, producing crisp patter sounds. 10,000 shadows trample the heavens and earth. Zhu Bai shouted in a low voice as he suddenly took the fourth step. The aura that surged out instantly increased by nearly 1,000 times. For a time, countless flickering figures of light actually formed around his body. Qingming's eyes narrowed when he saw the countless shadows beneath Zhu Bai's feet. He was not to be outdone. His hands quickly formed a seal, forming a strange hand seal. Countless rays of green light shot out from the hand seal and shot into the sky. They actually pierced a crack in the space behind him. Green Emperor Seal. Rumble. Above the crack in space, a several thousand feet tall green figure suddenly stepped through the air and landed on the arena. This green figure wore a crown on his head. His face was blurry and his body gave off a terrifying aura that looked down on the world. Countless rays of green light surrounded him, increasing his might. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, the green figure shot towards the countless shadows before him. A mountain-like palm unceremoniously smashed down in an attempt to break apart the countless shadows. Terrifying explosions resounded in the void. They were continuous and endless. It was as if countless fireworks were blooming in the sky without stopping. Everyone in the arena raised their heads and looked at the terrifying explosions in the sky. Their eyes were filled with shock and anticipation. Qingming and Zhu Bai were both top 5 geniuses on the previous Green Emperor ranking. Who would be the final victor in the clash between the two of them? The terrifying explosions did not last for long. They slowly calmed down in the sky like a sunny day after a rain. Swoosh! A figure suddenly shot out and smashed into the huge arena that was suspended in the air. He fell on the arena in a rather miserable state. Everyone looked over and recognized the miserable figure. It was Qingming from the Azure Dragon subsidiary hall. At this moment, Qingming's hair was disheveled and his face was pale. Blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. He looked extremely exhausted. At the same time, there was a trace of unwillingness on his face. He knew that he had been defeated twice by the same person. Qingming has been defeated. Aroki, who was sitting on the table, frowned and muttered to himself. Zhu Bai slowly landed on the arena in the sky. He stared at Qingming with his sharp eyes and said, "The outcome has been decided. Qingming, you have lost." Zhu Bai's face was slightly pale and he was panting. However, compared to Qingming, he was in a much better state. It was obvious that Zhu Bai was much stronger than Qingming. Qingming snorted and jumped down from the arena. He found the territory of the Azure Dragon subsidiary hall and sat down cross-legged on the ground to heal his injuries. Zhu Bai wins the first round. Emperor Qing said indifferently. After the announcement, Zhu Bai also jumped down from the arena and returned to the Zhu family team. With the help of the Zhu family master, he also began to heal the injuries in his body. Those who have drawn Lot B, step forward. After the battle between Zhu Bai and Qingming ended, Emperor Qing continued to arrange the opponents for the next round. 2 figures stepped forward again. They were Grand Lily and Lightless Monk. When Lightless Monk saw that his opponent was Grand Lily, a trace of bitterness appeared on his kind face. Grand Lily was very powerful. Lightless Monk did not have the slightest confidence to face such an opponent. However, he had reached the point where he had no choice but to shoot. Grand Lily's pretty face was cold. She took a step forward and jumped onto the arena. Her cold eyes stared at Lightless Monk with a trace of disdain at the corner of her mouth. In Grand Lily's opinion, Lightless Monk's advancement to the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list was purely due to luck. After all, the strongest person in Lightless Monk's arena was Elviatao, who was only at the peak of the 6-wheel Ultimate Emperor realm. Hence, Grand Lily did not take Lightless Monk seriously at all. Lightless Monk also jumped onto the arena. He put his palms together and bowed to Grand Lily. He said kindly, "I hope Almsgiver Grand Lily will show mercy. Me. Little monk, if you don't want to suffer physical pain, it's not too late to forfeit now. Otherwise, it'll be hard to say who will win when the battle starts later," Grand Lily said arrogantly. Lightless Monk put his palms together and continued, "I'm still willing to test Almsgiver Grand Lily's strength. Me. Stubborn monk, since you're not forfeiting, Don't blame me for being rude. Grand Lily snorted and placed her jade-like hands on her waist. With a light pull, a black soft whip appeared in her palm. Following that, Grand Lily waved her jade-like hands and the soft whip swept toward Monk Wu Deng's face like a spirit snake. Nirvana body. Lightless Monk looked at the soft whip that was sweeping towards him. He was not in a hurry and his palms were still put together. Waves of dazzling golden light burst out from his body, causing Lightless Monk's golden light to spread out. At the same time, a huge illusory image of an ancient Buddha appeared behind Lightless Monk. The ancient Buddha had a compassionate look on his face. He put his palms together and sat cross-legged on the golden lotus, silently overlooking everything that was under his control. Nirvana body. Below the arena, Zhuoan looked at the Nirvana body that Lightless Monk used and was shocked. Lightless Monk's Nirvana body was actually similar to his Vairocana Nirvana body. It seemed that they were both Buddhist body refining cultivation methods. Clang. The sound of metal clashing resounded between heaven and earth. The soft whip that was like a spiritual snake hit the ancient Buddha's body fiercely. However, it was unable to cause any damage to the ancient Buddha. Instead, the soft whip was retracted back into Grand Lily's hand due to the recoil. What a tough body. Chapter 743. The Unlucky Guosheng Boom. 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 Countless whip shadows danced in the sky and landed on Monk Wu Deng's body. Sounds of metal clashing could be heard. Monk Wu Deng was as still as a mountain. He placed his palms together and stood silently on the spot. The ancient Buddha shadow behind him was unusually tough. No matter how terrifying Grand Lily's whip shadows were, they were all absorbed by the shadow. Grand Lily's face turned gloomy. Monk Wu Deng knew that he was not as strong as her. Hence, he did not fight back. Once he attacked, he would reveal his weakness. Hence, he just stood there and defended himself. Moreover, Monk Wu Deng's Nirvana body had a terrifying defense. Grand Lily's whip shadows could not do anything to him. Bald Monk, are you going to be a coward all the time? Grand Lily could not help but ask. Monk Wu Deng still had his palms together. He wore a friendly smile on his face and said softly, "Brother Grand Lily, you are exaggerating. I am not as strong as you. Naturally, I will not embarrass myself in front of you." Grand Lily's face turned gloomy. Monk Wu Deng was stubborn. He only defended and did not attack. She felt helpless. If that's the case, don't blame me for being impolite. Grand Lily snorted coldly and waved her hand. Instantly, the soft whip in her hand emitted a dazzling red glow. 10,000 snakes floating. Grand Lily shouted and her whip changed. Countless whip shadows swept out again. However, this time, the whip shadows were in a demonic blood-red color. The whip shadows wriggled and turned into terrifying blood-red pythons in the sky. There were tens of thousands of them. Their terrifying aura pressed down, causing the entire space to stagnate. Looking at the tens of thousands of blood-red pythons, Monk Wu Deng, who was in the ancient Buddha shadow, was stunned. He could feel the terror of the blood-red pythons and his face turned solemn. Monk Wu Deng continuously formed seals. The ancient Buddha shadow behind him squinted its eyes and slowly opened them. Its eyes were filled with a golden glow. The originally illusory figure became more real at that moment. Boom! Tens of thousands of blood-colored pythons arrived in an instant. They were like a rain of blood that filled the sky. They poured down endlessly on the ancient Buddha's illusory figure, causing countless golden sparks to erupt. Moreover, the Glen Lily's methods were also quite ruthless. The moment the countless blood-colored python whip shadows came into contact with the ancient Buddha's shadow, they exploded and unleashed a terrifying power. With so many blood-colored pythons exploding, the power of the explosion was extremely terrifying. Even the ancient Buddha phantom, which had a strong defense, became illusory and transparent under this explosion. It seemed to be on the verge of collapse. "Break for me." Glen Lily's voice was as cold as the winter. As soon as she said that, the countless blood-colored pythons behind her exploded together, forming a huge blood-colored explosion in the sky above the ancient Buddha's shadow. Rumble. The power of the blood-colored explosion was too terrifying. Under the attack of the blood-colored explosion, the ancient Buddha shadow, which had already dimmed, was shattered into countless golden fragments. Poochie. Monk Wu Deng spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were dim and dispirited. He kept retreating until he almost reached the edge of the ring. Bald monk. Aren't you going to admit defeat? Glan Lily held the soft whip in her hand and walked over slowly. Her beautiful face was filled with arrogance. Monk Wu Deng smiled bitterly. There was a huge difference between his cultivation and Glan Lily's. It was not easy for him to hold on until now. I admit defeat. Almsgiver Glan, you have won. Monk Wu Deng placed his palms together. After saying that, he leaped down from the ring without any hesitation. The second round, Glan Lily wins. Emperor Qing nodded and announced again. Glan Haohai, who was sitting at the table, could not help but smile when he heard Emperor Qing's announcement. Although he knew that Glan Lily had improved rapidly in the past few years and had a high chance of entering the top 5 on the Green Emperor leaderboard, it still depended on luck. If Glan Lily was unlucky enough to meet Huangfu Wudao in these 2 rounds, it would be impossible for her to win. She was undoubtedly very lucky to meet Monk Wu Deng in this round of battle for the top 5. This also meant that Glan Lily already had the qualifications to participate in the entrance examination of Xian College. Those with Lot C, step forward. Emperor Qing continued. Whoosh. A domineering figure suddenly jumped out from the group of 6 and landed on the arena. A terrifying aura surged out from this person's body. It was as if the person standing on the arena was not a human, but an ancient beast. As soon as this person appeared, the 5 people who had yet to step forward changed their expressions. This was because the person who jumped onto the ring was none other than Huangfu Wudao, the former number 1 genius on the Green Emperor leaderboard. Huangfu Wudao's name was well known in the imperial capital. In addition, during the group stage, he had easily killed the border general who was in charge of the ring. Without a doubt, although Huangfu Wudao's cultivation had not reached the level of the Xuanzuan realm, his strength was even more terrifying than ordinary people in the Xuanzuan realm. He was a true monstrous genius, an existence that the 5 people dared to challenge. It's actually the first prince, Huangfu Wudao. I wonder who is so unlucky to have drawn the first prince as his opponent. Everyone in the square looked at Huangfu Wudao with awe on their faces. Huangfu Wudao's terror was deeply rooted in their hearts. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. The pressure that Huangfu Wudao gave him was extremely terrifying. He knew that if he were to fight Huangfu Wudao now, he would lose without a doubt. At the same time, Zhuowen was very curious. Who exactly was Huangfu Wudao's opponent this time? The others were similarly curious in their hearts. Who exactly was Huangfu Wudao's opponent this time? Therefore, numerous gazes fell on Zhuowen's group of 5. A robust figure slowly walked out. This person carried a large saber on his back, had a resolute expression, and was surrounded by countless saber qi. Guosheng. Zhuowen's gaze focused when he saw this figure. He never expected that the person who drew the same lot as Huangfu Wudao would actually be Guosheng. There was not the slightest trace of fear in Guosheng's eyes. Instead, they were filled with monstrous battle intent. He stomped his foot and instantly leaped onto the ring, staring at Huangfu Wudao with a fervent gaze. The corners of Zhuowen's eyes twitched when he saw Guosheng's fervent appearance. This Guosheng is really one-track-minded. He's clearly facing a terrifying expert like Huangfu Wudao, yet he's not the slightest bit afraid and can even be so excited. Kid. Is there something wrong with this fellow's brain? Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. This caused Zhuowen's face to twitch. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "It's not that there's something wrong with his brain. It's just that his brain isn't working well." Domineering Blade Heavenly Venerate, who was sitting upright on the table, had a grave expression on his face. However, he sighed inwardly. Guosheng's talent was very strong, especially his comprehension of the Saber Dao. Even Domineering Blade Heavenly Venerate secretly praised Guosheng. Guosheng was a genius in the Saber Dao. A month ago, Guosheng had already broken through to the ultimate 8-wheel emperor realm. In addition to his saber intent, Guo Sheng was not even afraid of an advanced ultimate 8-wheel Emperor realm expert in a battle. Logically speaking, such strength was more than enough to enter the top 5 of the Green Emperor list. Unfortunately, Guo Sheng's opponent this time was Huangfu Wudao. His chances of victory were too slim. I never thought that Huangfu Wudao's opponent this time would actually be Guo Sheng. Guo Sheng can be considered a rather famous genius. He is also very strong and has comprehended saber intent. However, his luck is not good. He actually encountered Huangfu Wudao. Everyone in the square shook their heads and sighed. They all lamented Guo Sheng's bad luck. This time, his path to the top 5 would probably be completely cut short. In the arena, Huangfu Wudao glanced indifferently at Guo Sheng and said indifferently, "Forfeit." Guo Sheng shook his head and said rather excitedly, "I've always heard that Huangfu Wudao's strength is extraordinary. I, Guo Sheng, have wanted to spar with you for a long time. Unfortunately, you've always been elusive. Now that I've encountered you, how can I forfeit?" Guo Sheng became more and more excited as he spoke. The saber chi around him even unconsciously formed countless hurricanes, making Guo Sheng seem even more terrifying. Huangfu Wudao looked indifferently at the fanatical Guo Sheng and said, "You won't be able to take one of my move." "That's not necessarily true." Guo Sheng shook his head. He bent his knees slightly and lowered his waist. He suddenly pulled out the large saber on his back. Instantly, terrifying saber chi covered over 10 meters around him, forming a saber chi domain. Guo Sheng used saber intent from the beginning. He was very clear about Huangfu Wudao's strength, so Guo Sheng didn't dare be careless. "I'll give Tyrant Blade exalted Heavenly Master face. I won't kill you. I'll only heavily injure you." Huangfu Wudao's voice was icy cold. He took a step forward, causing countless gales to sweep out. His shoulder-length hair and clothes fluttered in the air. Whoosh! In an instant, Huangfu Wudao disappeared on the spot. When everyone came back to their senses, Guo Sheng, who had originally used saber intent, was like a kite with a broken string as he flew out of the arena. Spurt! An arrow of blood spurted out. Guo Sheng's face was as pale as snow, and his pupils constricted to the size of needles. Huangfu Wudao had only used one move, and the saber intent domain he'd used had actually collapsed. Then, he was seriously injured and flew out. Guo Sheng didn't have the slightest ability to resist. As he looked at Guo Sheng, who was instantly defeated, Zhuo Wen's gaze squinted slightly, and it was filled with shock. Even though Zhuo Wen knew that Huangfu Wudao's strength was extremely strong, he never imagined that it would be so ridiculously strong. Guo Sheng, who had mastered saber intent and had broken through to the ultimate emperor stage, couldn't even withstand one move from Huangfu Wudao. The third round, Huangfu Wudao wins. Looking at Huangfu Wudao, who had cleanly defeated Guo Sheng, the corners of the Qing Emperor's mouth curled into a smile. Huangfu Wudao was the disciple of the imperial family that he valued the most. In a sense, Huangfu Wudao actually represented the dignity of the imperial family. The more outstanding Huangfu Wudao's performance was, the more the dignity of the imperial family was displayed. Following Huangfu Wudao's strong victory, the Qing Emperor continued to announce, "Those who drew Lot D, step forward." At this moment, there were only 4 people left who hadn't fought. They were Zhuowen, Huangfu Wuji, Qing Yang, and Murong Zhon. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 figures suddenly stepped forward and leaped into the arena. They faced each other from a distance. It was Murong Zhon and Qing Yang. Zhuowen slowly turned his head, and his eyes suddenly met with Huangfu Wuji's. Both of their eyes emitted an intense cold light. Chapter 744. Azure Dragon Secret Art. "I don't think the one with bad luck is me, but you," Zhuowen indifferently replied. "Hee. You're still as arrogant as ever. In a moment, I will let you know the taste of despair." Huangfu Wuji's eyes flashed with a cold light as he coldly said. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. After Huangfu Wuji had broken through to the ultimate emperor realm, he had become quite troublesome to deal with. But Zhuowen also had many cards in his hand, so he didn't necessarily fear Huangfu Wuji. I can see that your mouth is very fierce. The words you spit out are like fart. If you're really so fierce, then I'll show you my true skills. Zhuowen coldly said. Huang Fu Wuji's pupils shrank. He coldly said, Humph. You'll see. As he spoke, Huang Fu Wuji no longer spoke. Instead, he looked at the arena. Although Zhuowen had killed Feng Yong and Cao Yang, he had been stunned. But to Huang Fu Wuji, he could also kill Zhuowen with a flip of his hand. Thus, he was confident that he could face off against Zhuowen. On the arena, Murongzhon still had a feminine smile on his face. But, as he stared at Qing Yang, who was wearing the Azure Dragon mask, there was a trace of seriousness in his eyes. Qing Yang was one of the two peerless heroes of the Azure Dragon division. He was low-key and extremely mysterious. In the last Azure Emperor rankings, he had been ranked 5th. But, in that ranking tournament, Qing Yang had not displayed his full strength, and had instead taken the initiative to give the 4th position to Qing Ming. Murongzhon was very clear that if Qing Yang hadn't taken the initiative to forfeit, then he would have been able to easily defeat him. Qing Yang, have you ever regretted forfeiting in the last ranking tournament? Your strength should be above Qing Ming's. In my opinion, giving up the 4th position to Qing Ming was truly foolish. Murongzhon elegantly said. Qing Yang slowly raised his head. A pair of sharp eyes pierced through the Azure Dragon mask and faintly stared at Murongzhon in front of him. At the same time, his hoarse voice sounded out. The Azure Emperor rankings doesn't mean much to me. Murongzhon raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, since it's meaningless, there's no need for us to fight. Just give up, just like last time. Qing Yang's gaze was still cold. He stared at Murongzhon and continued, but it's different this time. The top 5 will determine the qualifications to enter Jioshan Academy. Therefore, you have to lose. Hearing this, Murongzhon frowned and said coldly, I will lose. In my opinion, you don't have that kind of ability, do you? Whether or not you have this kind of ability is not just for you to say. Let's see who's the real deal. Qing Yang stopped talking nonsense and stood quietly on the spot. Waves of green energy burst out from his body and condensed behind him like building blocks. Awoo! Suddenly, a huge green dragon quietly appeared in the void behind Qing Yang. Its huge dragon eyes were filled with majesty. The green scales on its body emitted a chilling light, causing people to involuntarily feel a sense of awe and veneration. Azure Dragon Art? Your Qing Yang has actually mastered the Azure Dragon Art. On the table, the Azure Emperor's gaze froze as he stared at Qing Yang in astonishment. Aroki, who was sitting not far away, slowly poured a cup of wine. There was a hint of joy in his eyes as he smiled and said, Qing Yang is the person with the highest talent in my Azure Dragon Branch Hall. Moreover, he has awakened a dragon soul of a high rank. He is most suitable to cultivate the Azure Dragon Art. Dragon soul? Hearing Aroki's words, the pupils of the other almighties on the table shrank. How could they not know about the dragon soul? The dragon soul was a dragon-shaped armor soul. This kind of armor soul was superior to all other armor souls and possessed a terrifying might that could look down on the world. Only the Blue Dragon Hall could possess a dragon soul. Within the Blue Dragon Hall, those who could awaken a dragon soul were all important targets to nurture. Once such a genius reached the 4th Reverend Realm, his strength would become extremely terrifying. Therefore, the gazes of all the Almighties changed when they heard Qing Yang's name. They were very clear that Qing Yang, who possessed a dragon soul, had a limitless future. Lu Hantian's right hand trembled as his eyes flickered. His gaze was on Zhuowen, who was below the stage. He was very clear that Qing Yang was not the only one who possessed a dragon soul. Zhuowen also possessed one. I never expected that someone from your Azure Dragon Branch Hall would awaken a dragon soul. I'm afraid that Qing Yang will soon be taken away by the main hall, right? If that's the case, there's not much meaning for Qing Yang to join the excellent Divine Academy. At this point, the Azure Emperor's gaze had a trace of doubt. If Qing Yang had truly awakened a dragon soul, the Azure Dragon Main Hall would definitely send people to take him away and nurture him. The Azure Dragon Main Hall's foundation was even deeper than the excellent Divine Academy. If Qing Yang were to enter the main hall, his development would be much better than in the excellent Divine Academy. Aoki shook his head and bitterly smiled. Your Highness Azure Emperor's words are not false. However, you should know that dragon souls are also divided into grades. They are divided into grades 1 to 9, with grade 1 being the lowest and grade 9 being the highest. The Eastern Lands is vast. The Azure Dragon Branch Hall alone is no less than 3 digits. It can be said that they are spread throughout the entire Eastern Land. Every year, there will be a few geniuses from the branch hall who have awakened a dragon soul, and they will be taken away by the main hall. Generally, only geniuses with dragon souls of grade 4 and above will be taken in by the main hall. However, dragon souls of grade 4 and below have limited potential. The main hall will not spend the effort to nurture these geniuses. At this point, the bitterness in the corner of Aoki's mouth became even more intense. He continued, although Qing Yang has awakened a dragon soul, it's only a grade 3 dragon soul. He's not qualified, so he can't enter the main hall to cultivate. Hearing this, the Azure Emperor nodded and said, a grade 3 dragon soul is much stronger than an ordinary armor soul. With the help of the Azure Dragon secret art, if Qing Yang reaches the 4th Supremacy Realm, he will still be far stronger than an ordinary 4th Supremacy Realm expert. If Qing Yang can enter the excellent Divine Academy this time, he will definitely advance by leaps and bounds. His future will be limitless. The other Almighties on the table also nodded. A grade 3 dragon soul might not be much to the Azure Dragon Branch Hall, but to them, it was already very powerful. In the Azure Shen Empire, there might be armor souls that could surpass a grade 3 dragon soul, but they were very few and extremely rare. It's actually a dragon soul. Looking at the Azure Dragon formed by the countless forces behind Qing Yang, Zhuowen could feel the aura of this Azure Dragon. It was actually somewhat similar to Xiao He. Clearly, this Azure force was formed by a dragon soul. But how can this Qing Yang materialize a dragon soul? He's clearly only at the ultimate emperor stage. Soon, Zhuowen frowned and muttered to himself in confusion. He, what an ignorant brat. This Qing Yang must have cultivated some kind of cultivation technique that can combine the Yuan Qi in his body with the dragon soul and finally transform into such a Qi giant dragon. Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang out in Zhuowen's mind, explaining the phenomenon of Qing Yang's current appearance to him. In other words, Qing Yang isn't a dragon soul materialization now? Zhuowen secretly asked Xiao Hei. It's not materialization. It's just somewhat similar to it, but its power is much weaker than it. Moreover, the dragon soul in this Qing Yang's body is of a pathetically low grade. If I'm not wrong, it should only be a grade 3 dragon soul. At this point, Xiao Hei's voice became extremely disdainful. It was obvious that he looked down on the dragon soul in Qing Yang's body. What a strange cultivation technique. It can actually make the dragon soul manifest in advance. Zhuowen didn't pay attention to Xiao Hei's disdain. Instead, he looked at the giant dragon behind Qing Yang with envy. He knew that Xiao Hei's original body was very unusual. If he could make Xiao Hei materialize, he would be able to unleash an extremely terrifying power and might. At this moment, the most shocked person should be Murongzhon, especially when he looked at the terrifying giant dragon behind Qing Yang. His eyes were filled with a trace of fear. The Blue Dragon Hall's Green Dragon Technique. You actually succeeded in cultivating this cultivation technique? Murongzhon asked in disbelief. The Green Dragon Technique was the highest cultivation technique in the Green Dragon sub-hall. Its power was extremely terrifying, but it was also very difficult to cultivate. It was said that even Aoki hadn't succeeded in cultivating it. Now, Qing Yang had actually succeeded in cultivating this cultivation technique, and it looked like he was using it with great ease. What? Are you afraid? Qing Yang was expressionless as he asked indifferently. Afraid? Not necessarily. I, Murongzhon, would like to experience the power of your Blue Dragon Hall's famous Green Dragon technique. What do you think? Murongzhon coldly snorted. His aura erupted like a volcano, causing the surrounding air to flow upwards like an upside-down waterfall, creating thousands of ripples. It made him look awe-inspiring and insufferably arrogant. Whoosh! In an instant, Murong-Zhon jumped up. The wind whistled, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. Chaotic battle technique. With a low roar, Murong-Zhon had already arrived in the air above Qingyang. His right hand formed a sword and pointed out. Countless terrifying auras swept out, transforming into endless blade lights and sword shadows. In an instant, it was as if Murong-Zhon's surroundings had turned into a terrifying battlefield. The Murong clan's chaotic battle technique? Unfortunately, in my opinion, your chaotic battle technique won't be able to withstand a single blow. From beginning to end, Qingyang's expression was calm. The eyes that were revealed through the green dragon mask were as calm as water. He stretched out his right hand and casually waved it downwards. The huge green dragon behind him roared, and the sound waves rolled out, shaking the heavens and the earth. The mountain-like green dragon claw swept towards the sky. With a cracking sound, the countless sword shadows around Murong-Zhon were instantly shattered like paper. What? How is this possible? Murong-Zhon's eyes narrowed into needles as he looked at the huge green dragon claw that was getting closer and closer. His eyes were filled with disbelief. His chaotic battle technique had been broken so easily. Even the green dragon claw didn't slow down at all. It was like a hot knife through butter. Poochie. The green dragon claw hit Murong-Zhon's chest. A terrifying force exploded, causing Murong-Zhon's pupils to shrink to the extreme. His entire body was like a falling leaf as he flew out of the arena. One move. Qingyang had only used one move, or even just a wave of his hand, and Murong-Zhon, who used to be ranked second on the Green Emperor leaderboard, had been defeated so thoroughly. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.